And good evening again, ladies and gentlemen. Take two of the Smoker Show, episode 33, the season finale of season one of the Smokers Show. 33 episodes. Phil, how you doing, my friend?
Good, buddy. More importantly, how are you?
I am doing okay. I do want to apologize to all our viewers and to you for the sudden change of plans last night. Did have a family emergency. Thankfully, everything is okay. Everything's taken care of. And we can continue to try to help convert more smokers. Oh, and by the way.
Yes, sir.
Congratulations to the city of San Francisco, where electronic cigarettes now, delicious flavors, are completely illegal. However, cigarettes, cannabis, and taking a dump on the street, completely legal and will continue on a day-to-day basis. Congratulations, San Francisco.
Good job, San Francisco. That's unbelievable, isn't it? So weed and cigarettes are okay.
Absolutely.
That's okay.
Yes.
Vaping is not.
Completely illegal. The sale of electronic cigarettes and components, completely illegal. It's, it's almost laughable at this stage that it's 2019 and in this country we allow our government to, any kind of government, whether it's local, city, state, federal, we allow our government to literally prohibit you from having a healthier lifestyle. It really is. I mean, if you think about that entire concept, it's not even fair though. I can't believe that I'm living in this age where a healthier alternative to cigarettes has been completely banned from a city, and other cities will follow. Because that's how California is. It's just a shit show. It just goes from one city to a city to another city to another city.
It's truly unbelievable. It's truly unbelievable. So what about using vapor products in San Francisco?
They can't prohibit you from using them. Just selling them.
Just selling it. Okay.
Correct. Because you can buy it from another city. The funny part is if I was in California now, which most of the businesses in California have shut down anyway because of the taxes that they passed a couple of years ago, everybody just left the state. It went from 3,000 vape shops at its heyday, 2015, to like 380. I think we have just as many vape shops in Tennessee as there in California right now. That's a different episode. But if I operated a business in California, I would surround the city of San Francisco with vape shops. I would just go right up the outskirts of town and just put up these little kiosks and just capture every highway that's leading in or out of the city. I mean, it's ridiculous. It really is. I'm really, really frustrated. But listen, if you do live in San Francisco and you are a smoker and you want to discover vaping, just order it online because they have not banned online sales. And hopefully this show will help you get through the trials and tribulations of trying to switch to that product. But before we do that, of course, Phil, let's thank our wonderful sponsors.
Let's do that. This time with the sponsors on the screen. We want to thank all our sponsors, of course, Innokin, Juno, Lunar Rover, who you are going to meet tonight for sure this time. use coupon code 𝗀𝗏𝗏 and get 15% off of your next order at lunarrover.com. MVS, my vapor store, use coupon code MTL10. That's going to get you 10% off of your order for the platform products. Our good friends at 5 Pawns, who really hooked us up nicely for the Smoker Show live in Germany. Naked 100, and of course the fine folks at Joytech. Dimitri, speaking of Joytech, you told me to try this 𝗃. Is that what they call it?
The 𝗃. There's a 𝗃 and the 𝗃 Max.
𝗃. Of course, it's an e-leaf product, but I mean, we know e-leaf.
Oh, we're matching too. Look at that.
Oh, yeah, we have the same one?
Yeah.
You're right. This thing is good.
Yeah. So, I always like to open these up and try them with freebase and with regular nicotine or salt nicotine. And it's funny because when Phil asked me about this, I said, this is what I think. I think it hits really good. I think it vapes really good. It's very comfortable, long-lasting battery. USB-C charging, which I was a little bit surprised, which is great.
Happily surprised.
But the flavors, it's okay. It's acceptable. And then Phil vapes it, and we just hooked up like 30 minutes ago here in our Zoom room. And I said, "What do you think about the 𝗃 Max?" And he says, "Well, it hits really good. It vapes really good. Good, comfortable mouthpiece. But the flavor's okay." It's exactly the same. It just goes to show you that this is one of the reasons why we became friends years ago. But if you are looking for something small, compact, this has a long-lasting battery, USB-C, fast charging, comfortable mouthpiece. It hits really good with 12 milligram and 20 milligram salt nicotine that I've tried in it. It's got an intense throat hit, and this is something that on this particular show, which is the Smoker Show, you'll hear about. You might not hear in other vape shows that talk about smoothness and 3 milligram and all that. But we believe that the smokers need that intense hit. And the power to cold ratio here has been done very, very well, in my opinion. And I think from a hit perspective, especially if your taste buds are not as gourmet as ours have been after years of quitting smoking, if you want just a strong, intense, like a cinnamon or a tobacco, you put it in there for a really strong throat hit. The Tance Max, really, really good.
Yeah, usually what I do when because I get a lot of pod systems in, the first thing I do is put a 12 milligram in.
Yeah.
If it doesn't satisfy me at a 12, I tend to not talk about it. The Innokin EQS,
yes,
in its high power mode, it does a pretty good job with 12 milligram.
Yes.
This does a fantastic job with 12 milligram.
Yes. Yes.
I'm very, very impressed, and this is one that I'm going to want to review just because I want to tell people about this one, right?
Absolutely, and that's what we did now. Since we don't have a time to do a segment on this particular, we figured we'd give it a plug, and they are one of our sponsors as well too. So the Joytech Tance Max. There's also a Tance regular, which is a smaller size. I don't know if you have that there in front of you.
Yeah, they have. This is the 𝗃𝗽𝗲𝗏 version. This is the Dimitri version,
yes.
Right? The smaller one,
and it's
right
pink
there.
too, isn't it?
Wow. 𝗃𝗽𝗏𝗏, and the Dimitri pink, smaller version, right there.
But in any case, if you're looking for something small, pick up the Tance. The Max just has a bigger battery. At some point. At some point, do we really call this a pod system? No, it's just like an AIO starter kit, kind of like the Beep.
That's next to a Chroma, right? Yeah. If we put it next to a CoolFire, right?
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
By the way, I do want to give one plug. Again, not a sponsor of the show. I just really, really like this flavor. I tried this in Spain. Remember when we were in Spain, we tried this orange creamsicle?
Yeah, you like that.
I vaped the crap out of that bottle because I took the bottle from the person that let me try it. Maria, God bless her, such a nice person. But I took her bottle, and they were kind enough to send me back some today. I just received it from the UK. The company is called Selfish E-Liquid, and the particular liquid that I'm talking about is Pride on Ice. I'm a big menthol guy. So there's two versions of it. There's just, the regular short feel that you have to add nicotine, and I make this into a 6 and I use it in like a restrictive direct lung setup. And he also sent me the salt version of it, which I'm using right now in the Tance Max, and it's just delicious, just oranges, it's so good. It really is. If you like orange creamsicle vapes, give Selfish E-Liquid a try. I mean, it was just fantastic.
You should do reviews or something.
Can you imagine? Let me take a vape off this.
You take a vape off that, and I'll talk about a liquid here too that I have actually started to crave. And look for this. It's like. So I always have like a bunch of stuff filled up with e-liquids, and this is my pool rig, my hot tub rig.
Yes,
because it's the Aegis Mini, which I have dropped in the water several times now. With the tank, you just kind of you do this and you blow it out and it just comes right back. But it does have a Zenith tank on it. And what I have in here, this, well, actually, right now I have Larry's e-liquid in here. Larry, it's not bad. I'm starting to get through it, but the Lunar Rover.
Strawberry mojito.
What?
Strawberry mojito.
The strawberry mojito.
That's what I said.
I love that liquid. I officially love that liquid.
You know why you like it? Is because the mint is done so well.
The mint is like you take mint leaves and
like
you chew on them.
Yeah,
it's just
exactly
done
right.
so well. It's done so well.
Absolutely.
And I'm not like a minty kind of guy either.
Yeah. You're coming around. You're coming around, hanging out with a Greek buddy.
Please, once you go Greek, that's what you seek. Jennifer has a question for you because Jennifer is going to be in town here in Florida and she's making a bunch of e-liquids for me.
Oh, nice.
She wants to know what you enjoy, what you enjoy as far as liquids.
To answer her question, it's cold orange and cream. That's exactly what it is. But you don't get a lot of the cream, which I like. I'm not a creamy guy. I like fruits mentholated.
That's not true.
I like fruits mentholated. I like strong cold menthol. I like it to hit my throat like people started falling off an inflatable being pulled by the butt. I like to hit it that hard. I want it to hit hard in my throat, which, by the way, you're going to see video later on in the show if we get a chance to have some fun. But that's what I like. I like fruity menthols. I prefer lemons, limes, oranges, grapes, white grapes, stuff like that. This is the kind of stuff that I like, but I like it to be really, really cold. So if you can do that, Jennifer, I'll try it. I'm
really
very picky with liquids, so don't be mad if I don't like it. I always feel so bad.
He likes it really mentally, Jennifer, to the point where it's annoying, and I can't vape anything that he vapes.
I do it on purpose so Phil won't take my vape.
Yeah. You know what I noticed? We're going to show another video a little bit later on from Dash Vapes that Dash Vapes did on the history of Innokin. And I realized that it might look like we were doing shots in that.
I know. I saw it afterwards too.
I went back, but I had just made a couple of espresso shots, right? That I'm enjoying right now, and no, there's no alcohol. I had one right now.
They were really good, by the way. That machine does a very good job. I might pick me one up as well too. But thank you for doing that. And I do wish I had an espresso now, but I'm not fancy like 𝗃𝗽𝗀𝗪, so I have to stick with my Keurig and my cheap Dunkin' Donuts coffee.
Hey, listen, break into some of that big tobacco money and go buy yourself a coffee maker.
I'm going to start a Patreon is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start a Patreon for a coffee maker. That's what I'm going to do. And a GoFundMe at the same time. All right, let's get started. We have a lot of stuff to talk about today. Of course, the telephone lines are open. This is always a Q&A interactive show. If you got any questions, 215-383-5752. I've got both of the channels working, by the way. I got it fixed yesterday. So we can hear you in stereo if you do call in, 215-383-5752. If you hear the British lady speaking, all you have to do is press 1. We do have some troubleshooting ready for you today, and this is what we're going to be talking about, right, Phil?
Absolutely, troubleshooting. I kind of introed it yesterday when you were on that phone call.
Yeah.
And by the way, I am very happy that everything is okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And everybody that reached out, thank you.
Yeah, and that you're in good spirits. I will say I was very, very impressed with everybody who was on the show. They were very understanding, and they did go and leave a whole lot of well wishes on my Facebook. So thank you. You guys are really wonderful, and I appreciate that. So troubleshooting. Look at that guy. That's the same guy I used for temperature control. Why will one person have a good experience with a tank or a product and others will not? Right? So we're going to talk about some troubleshooting, and the tutorial, what we're talking about is going to assume like a pretty standard user replaceable coil tank with bottom airflow. Okay. And we're going to talk we'll talk around some of the slides that you see and some of the bullet points that you're going to see. But for the most part, that's what we're going to cover in this show.
I think one of the things that people got to realize, I mean, the majority of tanks that are out there are going to be bottom airflow. This is just a standard today, and this is why we're choosing that to go along too. And our personal experience will vary. There's also something that's not covered in these slides, and that's simply personal taste. We deal with this all the time as designers and working with a manufacturing company that makes replaceable coils, that we'll get a message from somebody, oh, absolutely hate the 0.8 ohm coil. It's just not working for me. And then we'll get a message 5 minutes later that says, oh my God, the only coil I like is the 0.8. So there's a lot of preference and taste to that. So make sure that you try a couple of resistances that work good with your liquid and what hits you the best and what you enjoy is best too. So aside from that, now we can talk about some of the troubleshooting that goes along with it.
And again, Dimitri, one of the reasons why we chose bottom airflow tanks is because I think today most, if not all, of the popular mouth to lung user replaceable coil tanks are going to be bottom. I know
absolutely.
Joytech did put out a few top airflow tanks a while back, but I don't think they got as popular as either the Zenith or the Nautilus did. So anyway, troubleshooting. The coil head, these are things that have to happen, right? The coil head must wick e-liquid properly as you're vaping and stop when you're not. Now, in the past, that was kind of an easy thing to do. Why was that easy? Because there were far less e-liquid types and vaping styles in the past, right? I mean, you were really limited to your choices in your PG-VG ratios and the types of airflows that were out there. So, since you had less variety, it was easier to do. Right. So this becomes more of a challenge when you have multiple liquid types and vaping styles. And we're going to talk about that in this tutorial.
I think up to 2015, 50-50 was pretty much standard and higher PG, which meaning that the liquid was thinner. So there was no thick liquid on the market, 50-50, and then upwards to 60 PG, 70% PG, and so forth, even 100% PG with some of the China liquids that we were using. Yeah. So up to then, it was easier to troubleshoot, if you want to call it that, because we knew exactly, based on the liquids that were available on the market, on how to pinpoint some issues.
Right, and I think liquids back then, they just wicked easier. When I started vaping, it was with Dekang, right? And Dekang was back then 70/30 PG/VG. And you'll notice when I do ratios, I always say PG/VG, right? Because back then, that's how we described the ratio, right? It was always PG first, followed by VG, because PG was the predominant ingredient in the e-liquid. VG was second, right?
Correct.
That has certainly shifted nowadays, and some people will put VG first. When they talk about the ratios, they'll talk about VG/PG, okay?
Correct. And by the way, I do want to mention that all these slides are available on Taste Your Juice under the Smoker Show tab. As we evolve this slide of the show, the new slides will be added in there. You'll be able to get all of them, including there's almost 100 slides, if I'm not mistaken, in there now with great information. So if you want to share it with somebody or get information to help other people out, tasteyourjuice.com, click the Smoker Show tab, and you'll find it there. So let's talk about some of the factors that will affect your vape.
But don't do that right now because I didn't update them yet, okay? But
yes,
we're up to about 100 slides, which is
awesome.
Pretty cool. So factors that will affect your vape, right? And this is really interesting because there's a lot of things that are happening as you're using a device that are going to affect how that device performs. So let's talk about some of those things. First of all, we already mentioned it, liquid. So it's going to be the viscosity or the thickness of the liquid, aka the PG/VG ratio, right? Higher PG, thinner liquid. Higher VG, thicker liquid. Also, sweeteners are going to affect your vape. How it performs in coils, how quickly it wrecks coils, the draw strength, how hard you suck, right? That's going to affect things. The airflow setting, how tight or how loose you have your airflow. The coil itself, what are some of the things on the coil? The hole size, meaning the wick hole size, where the e-liquid actually enters your coil, that's going to affect things. The wicking material that's being used and the density of that wicking material, how much is used, that's going to affect things. And of course, the resistance of the coil as well. Weather, seriously? Yeah, seriously, guys. Weather is going to affect your vape. The temperature outside and even the air pressure could affect your vape. And then the device, right? The wattage setting that you're using and the device's wattage accuracy, which is one of the things that I tend to look for when we're talking about or when I'm reviewing devices, because a 15-watt signal, a 15-watt setting on your device better damn well be a 15-watt setting on my device as well. Otherwise, you and I are going to have two different experiences, and how how that signal comes up is going to affect. Like we've looked at some 𝗃𝗃 devices where the signal goes way beyond the starting or your set wattage, and then it comes back down. That's going to affect things. That's going to potentially burn out a coil faster than another device. So, all important things and all things to think about when you are troubleshooting what's going on with your atomizer or your vape.
And by the way, if you're just shy and you don't want to call in, you can just put your question in chat, especially if it pertains in this particular subject that we're talking about today, troubleshooting your vape. And Bill Tarling, our kind moderator here, and thank you so much for your work, Bill. We'll collect the questions and make sure that we get him and see him in private, because I think this is a very, very important topic that we have unfortunately heard more and more of lately as more people are getting into the vape space. So let's move along to some of the primary issues that you will experience, Phil.
Yeah, and I before we do that, I will say hello to Mr. Battery Mooch, who has joined the show.
Hey,
Thank
Mooch.
you very much for being part of it. So here's some of the primary issues that you're going to experience, or you could potentially experience as you're vaping. Flooding and gurgling. We're going to talk about what that is. Bad and poor taste. And then there's, of course, the no taste. We'll get to that as well. One of my least favorite things that I hear. A burnt or a dry taste, different from bad or poor taste, right? Also condensation, and the worst possible thing we could have is leaking. Condensation and leaking are two very different things, folks, and we're going to talk about that on this show.
Okay, so let's get started with the first item.
All right, so flooding and gurgling. First of all, what is it? Okay, flooding and gurgling, that occurs when there's just basically too much e-liquid in your coil. And that means the e-liquid has worked its way from the tank into the coil, but too much got in there. So what happens is as you vape, you'll notice the draw is not smooth. You'll sense that the air path is partially blocked, not completely blocked, but partially blocked by liquid. And you'll sense like the air has to bubble through the liquid that's in that coil. And if you take a strong draw, like a firm strong draw, you do have the potential to get liquid and or condensation in your mouth.
I think one of the biggest turnoffs for somebody that's starting out is this, because they hear it and it feels, even for us that are experienced vapors, it feels like something is wrong. It's one of the issues that we try to address with the Zenith tank by shutting off the liquid flow completely to the tank when you're filling the tank. Then when you open it, it just releases the liquid back into the coil. Then you're never going to get that flooding. If it didn't have that system and you had this huge tank, as you're filling it, air gets in there as well too and pushes the liquid more into the coil. And then that first puff that you're going to take, for us that are experienced, we know how to kind of work through it. We can understand it. But for somebody that's new, it's a huge, huge turnoff. But it shouldn't be something that deters you from trying vaping.
Right. And you know, like as we talk about these things, you know, a lot of the people that are in chat, a lot of the people that watch the show, you're familiar with this stuff, right? I mean, you've probably experienced a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about. But the problem is a new person, somebody who's just getting involved with vaping, they may come across these things and just like give up on it, right? But the idea is not to give up on it, but to find something that works and maybe look at some of these troubleshooting tips and get an idea of how things are working behind the scenes so that you can adjust and get rid of some of these problems, right?
So speaking of flooding and gurgling, let's see what could possibly cause it and kind of analyze a little bit some of the issues that could be potentially creating this issue with your atomizer.
Let's do that, Dimitri. So here's some what could cause it, okay? So we know that you have to prime the coil before you use the coil. Depending on whether or not you can get at that coil, you're going to have to let the coil sit for like 5 to 10 minutes as e-liquid works its way in. But if you manually prime it, like a Z coil that you would put in the Zenith, if you do prime it too much and you start vaping, you could potentially get flooding and gurgling. Top filling. If top filling is not done correctly, if there's no way to release the pressure as you're filling, or if you have the top cap open for too long on some atomizers, you could potentially get flooding and gurgling because there's no air seal there. So air or liquid rather is going to work its way into the coil as you have the top of that tank open.
I do want to mention one thing here, Phil, if I can interrupt, and that is the Aspire Nautilus 2. Great tank, but it was known for having this issue because you have to remove the whole top and put liquid in that whole area around the tank. Inside the tank is open to air. So when you put the top back on, it forced the liquid. Now for us, when you and my wife used the tank religiously for over a year, she knew that as soon as you put it back on there, you're going to get a little girl. Either going to, you know, Phil will tell you exactly what to do to concern that. But it's something because it is a very popular tank. And if you've picked it up and had some issues and you kind of put it to the side, hopefully this tutorial will help you.
Yeah, and I think even they noticed or acknowledged that because they put out the Nautilus, the new one, right? The new version,
Correct.
Which has the slide open top.
Correct.
We could even talk about the Zlide a little bit here because the Zlide is only a 2 mil capacity, and the reason why we did that was to prevent flooding and gurgling when you do open that to fill because it doesn't have the liquid flow shutoff. We've had so many requests to do the Zlide in a 4 mil capacity. We are experimenting with a 4 mil. We're experimenting with a 4 mil Zlide right now to see if it's going to give you an acceptable experience, right?
Absolutely. So, all right, moving along.
Moving along. So the liquid is too thin for the coil, right? I mean, this could definitely happen. To give you a very, very good example of that, you get a giant or sub-ohm tank that has giant liquid ports, and you put a very, very thin e-liquid in, you are going to get flooding and gurgling, if not leaking in that scenario. The airflow setting is too tight, and I shouldn't only say too tight, but I should also say too tight for your draw, okay? So your draw is very, very strong. You have the airflow set very, very tight. What typically is going to happen, more vacuum is going to be created. That's going to suck more e-liquid into the coil, which could potentially lead to flooding and gurgling. That leads to the next one.
Wait, on that particular issue, just to put my little addition here is...
What's your little addition there, buddy?
Phil has always said that a cigarette is a variable wattage device, and it absolutely is true. The draw of the cigarette is controlled by how hard you suck. And in general, a cigarette needs to be drawn hard.
The power of the cigarette is controlled by how hard you suck.
Correct.
Right?
So it just in general, when you're lighting a cigarette up, you have to take a hard puff to light up all the tobacco and the paper and draw that smoke into your mouth. A vaporizer works completely different. It's something that I hope that existing vapors and vape shops do teach. It's something that we teach in our Back to Basics seminar as well too, is how to actually, as a new user, how to use the device. The device does most of the work for you. The draw on a vaporizer is completely different than a cigarette. You can get a cigarette type draw on a tank, but the actual suction of your performance on that tank, it can be very, very simple. You don't need that much of work from yourself like you do a cigarette. You simply, I'm going to demonstrate for you here. You just simply put it and just gently puff on it.
Here we go. Oh, that's so hot. Very nice. Oh,
and it works just fantastic. So just keep that in mind, of course, if you're a new user.
You make it look so good. So yeah, I mean, really what Dimitri just described is that no matter how hard you suck on an electronic cigarette, it's not going to change how much vapor it's going to give you. It's always going to be a consistent amount of vapor, so you should have a smooth, consistent draw. Okay, so the airflow, so your draw is too hard. You know, if you're sucking too hard, that is going to pull more e-liquid into the coil, could perhaps lead to flooding and gurgling. The coil is at the end of life. Believe it or not, coils, when they get to end of life, they tend to pull more e-liquid in. So you're going to tend to get more flooding and gurgling. You went to why'd you go to?
Oh, I thought you were going to kind of expand a little bit on that.
Well, I just did.
I want you maybe to explain.
Yes.
That, that there is cotton in this coil, and it does get degraded after a while. And this is one of the reasons why you're going to get it in there, right?
It does. I mean, when cotton first starts out, you know what cotton looks like. It's beautiful. It's white. It's fluffy. It's very, very absorbent. And that tends to degrade over time, due to the coil hitting it, heating it up, cooling it down, some residue being left on the cotton from the e-liquid. And what's going to happen is it's not going to absorb and hold as much as it used to. Instead, it's just going to just kind of allow that e-liquid to pass through and make its way to the coil. And that could cause flooding and gurgling.
Beautiful.
Thank you. All right, flying. What does flying have to do with anything? Well, this is why I wanted to cover flying with your e-cigs in this troubleshooting episode, because flying does absolutely have something to do with it. It will cause flooding and gurgling, potentially even leaking. We'll talk about that when we get to it. Weather, weather again. Air pressure could cause flooding and gurgling. Very, very hot temperatures. You'll notice that everything works perfect in the wintertime, but all of a sudden the summertime comes and things are changing. And that has to do with the temperature, because the temperature is going to heat up the e-liquid. The e-liquid is going to become less thick, okay, more thinner. It's going to thin it out, and that's going to allow it to seep into the coil a little bit faster. And then chain vaping. Chain vaping, because you're using that coil over and over and over again, you're constantly sucking on the atomizer, which means you're constantly pulling more e-liquid in. So if you are chain vaping, that could also lead to flooding and gurgling, because of you're just constantly hitting it. You're constantly pulling e-liquid in, and you're pulling it in faster than it could be vaporized.
So, you see that there's just a multitude of issues that could potentially happen. And that's why I think it's important to capture it in the way that we're doing here. But I also think it's important for experienced vapors and for retail vape shop employees to be able to have this information. I think it's critical to be successful in converting from smoking to vaping, to understand these issues. For some of us, it took 6 months to learn all this stuff as we were going along. Thankfully, we had support from friends and other vapors to be able to kind of walk us through it. But for a lot of people in today's world, especially fast-paced world, here's a kit and start vaping. It just does not work that way. So I hope you guys understand that there's just a multitude of issues, and we're going to break down each and every one for you now.
It's really, when your vaporizer works perfectly, there's so many things that are balanced that are just happening the right way. And hopefully you can see by some of these issues that we're going to talk about and some of the causes, all those things that need to balance out correctly to give you that perfect vape, right?
All right. So continuing on with flooding and gurgling.
Okay, so how do you solve it? I mean, if this happens, if you go ahead and you vape and you feel those little air bubbles, and you sense that there's some e-liquid in your air path, what can you do? So now you're gonna come off of that slide, and I'm going to show you a couple different methods that I personally use. First of all, the power of Christ compels you method. you have e-liquid. The e-liquid is sitting in the chamber. It's sitting in the coil. It's sitting in the air shaft. So what you do is you do that, right? You do that. Now, if you have a pod system where the pod does not sit firmly, make sure you hold the pod, because when you do that, the pod's going to come flying off. You won't have that problem with a tank that uses a 510. Right. So, but the thing is, you might not want to do that if you're inside, right? That's a bad idea because you're going to get e-liquid all over the place. Maybe you could do it into a sink, maybe a toilet bowl or something like that, but certainly not on the carpet or around kids or your tile floor. So you can use the blow up method.
My favorite. My favorite.
What's that?
The blow up method is my favorite.
You like the blow up method. So it looks funny, but by golly, it works really well. What you don't want to do is blow down. Okay. So what I'm talking about is blowing into your atomizer to clear it out. The problem is if you blow down like that, all you're going to do is you're going to push more e-liquid into your coil. That's exactly what's going to happen. So what you have to do is you have to blow up, because what you want to do is you want to make sure that e-liquid is not over the liquid ports on the coil. So grab yourself some vapor towel, okay, and put it over the airflow, where the airflow comes out. Hold it like this and just blow up into it without pushing the button. So it looks like this.
Bill says that we should change the wording to blow upward instead of blow up, especially with the news lately.
We can certainly do that. We could definitely do that. But you'll notice there that absolutely no liquid came out. Okay, no condensation came out. So this is a completely cleared and clean tank right now. But that's how you do it. And believe me, that will clear it out. Okay.
All right, moving along.
All right, so you know what it is, you know what causes it, and you know how to fix it. What could you do to prevent it, right? So only prime, if you are manually priming your coil, only prime with enough e-liquid to wet it, but not soak the wicking material. So what does that mean? I mean, you kind of want the wicking material soaked with e-liquid, because if that wicking material is even the least little bit dry where it's touching the coil, as soon as you fire your device, it's going to burn the cotton. So there's a little bit of a balancing act, right? You just want to if somebody says 6 drops, well, it depends on the kind of coil that you're using. I'll like a zenith coil, I'll put like maybe 3 drops of e-liquid in there. And if I do ever get any flooding or gurgling, the power of Christ or the blow up method, the blow upward method works just fine.
I have a little trick that I like to tell to new people, and I call it the hole to hole priming. So I know that sounds really, really dirty, but the hole to hole priming, what it means is if the coil itself has 4 portholes that are around the coil where the liquid goes in, I put 4 drops. I put 1 drop in each hole, and then I put 4 drops on the top, right? So that saturates the coil. If the coil around has 3, put 1 drop in each hole on the side of the coil, and then 3 drops on top. So that's kind of like the hole to hole ratio. Make sure that's good and saturated, but not too much where it will make it flood.
You know what? I never understood the priming. Go back to the main camera, because sure. I'm looking at the chat here a little bit, and some other people have some good ideas too. Like Ard says, turn it upside down and press the fire button a couple times. That could potentially clear things out. Maybe not in the shaft, but definitely in the coil. And somebody said, use the power of Christ compels you into vapor towel, so you can do it inside. Sure. Good idea, right? That's great. Sure. But I never understood priming the actual cotton liquid ports, right? Because as soon as you put the coil into e-liquid, those ports get e-liquid anyway.
They do. It just makes it go faster. It just makes the capillary action go faster if that side port is wet, I guess. That's why I call it the hole to hole. But
okay, I like the hole to hole. Just the phrase, the term is lovely.
Hole to hole vape.com coming soon.
All right, let's move on. So that's one thing you don't want to do, is you don't want to over prime. Top filling, okay? If you do have a top filling atomizer, do it as quickly as possible. Open it up, get your e-liquid in, shut it down. Because you don't want to leave that open. You don't want to leave it exposed to air, because the air is just going to allow that e-liquid to soak into the coil, okay? So, with the Zenith, it's not so bad, because it does shut off the liquid flow as soon as you open it up. But on some other atomizers, open it up, get the e-liquid in there, and close it up as soon as possible. Other things that you could try loosening the airflow a little bit. If you are constantly getting gurgling and flooding, there are some people that like an extremely tight draw, and maybe your extremely tight draw in combination with the how hard you're drawing on it, might be pulling too much e-liquid in. So you can certainly try loosening your airflow a little bit. You can try not drawing as hard. That's going to pull less e-liquid into your coil. You can try using a thicker e-liquid with a little bit of a higher VG ratio, so it won't go into the coil quite as fast. And if possible, if your atomizer allows you to do this, you can like shut down your liquid flow controller if you do have a liquid flow controller. That's actually kind of a hidden feature of the Zenith tank that we have, because you can open it just a little bit so you're not exposing the fill port on here. But if you look inside, you'll notice that you are covering the liquid ports on the inside of the atomizer. So that's kind of a hidden feature on the original Zenith,
which works really good for me because I use a 60% PG based liquid for my all-day vape, my Sublime. So that feature really helps, especially during warm days when the liquids get a little bit thinner as well too. So it really helps that you can adjust that little liquid flow that goes inside the atomizer.
Yes.
Bad or poor taste, Phil?
Bad or poor taste, not burnt. Okay, so what is it? You notice the flavor, like you using an e-liquid, you love that e-liquid, and all of a sudden you notice the flavor is changing, and it's not as enjoyable as you remembered. So what could cause that? You want to, first of all, there is one thing that I'm not a fan of, and I hear this a lot. I got an atomizer and I get no flavor at all.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that. I like, there's no way you're not getting any flavor at all.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's impossible. Maybe you just started vaping, right? And some of your taste buds are clogged by all of those cigarettes that you smoked, and you need some time for those taste buds to open up and start to taste again. But don't ever tell me you're not getting any flavor at all, because I'm not buying it. You know, maybe it could be that you tried one thing and now you're trying a different thing, and it's different. It's different. And you're used to the flavor that you were getting on this thing, and now the flavor on this thing is a little bit different. It could be that you're using a particular e-liquid that maybe you were sub-ohming, and you were hitting it with very high temperatures.
Right.
That was opening up the flavor of that particular e-liquid, right?
That gets us into the troubleshooting of
it kind of does. It kind of does. So what could cause it? Again, coil is at the end of its life, right? So basically it's gunked up. There's all kinds of particles in there. There's sweetener, coated on that coil. I know there's a lot of folks out there. That just like to use a coil over and over and over again. Well, we'll get to that in a second. So again, build up on the coil. Another thing, vapor's tongue.
Yes.
Okay, vapor's tongue. If you use a single flavor for a long period of time, you will become accustomed to that flavor. That flavor will lose its beauty, if you will, for you, right? So what you do is you take your favorite flavor, you put it aside. You vape something else for a while, you enjoy that, and then you go back to your original flavor, and you will notice that it is just as delicious as you remembered. So I think it is important to switch it up a little bit. The liquid is designed for more power or heat, right? There's a lot of e-liquids out there, sub-ohming e-liquids, higher VG e-liquids, e-liquids with a lot of sweeteners. They're designed for more heat, more power, more wattage. If you are using liquids like that in low wattage devices, some pod systems, some mouth-to-lung tanks, first of all, they're probably not going to wick as good as they should, but they're probably not also going to taste as good as they should. Maybe your wattage isn't high enough. Maybe you're using a Zenith coil and you have it set for 7 watts. Maybe you're a little bit low on your wattage, or even if you're using a sub-ohm tank and it's designed for 70 watts and you're hitting it with 30 watts, that could definitely cause poor taste as well. Or again, you just started vaping and your taste buds just haven't cleaned themselves out yet. You're used to putting all that smoke and tar on your taste buds, and they're kind of closed up, and they just need time to heal and open up. And all of a sudden, things are going to start tasting better for you.
And I do recommend like cinnamons or very strong, intense flavors. If you're a beginner, meaning that you're switching from smoking to vaping and you're not picking up any flavor, tobacco's not doing it for you, bump it up. Get to some of these cinnamons, some of these anise flavors. ANISE flavors.
That's anise flavor. Although I call them anus flavors too because I really don't like that flavor. But
it's my Greek. It's like saying schnitzel all the time. So some menthols, something a little bit more powerful, something a little bit more intense, because it does take a while for this coating of smoke to come out of your mouth and open up these taste buds and open up the pores in your mouth to be able to taste these wonderful liquids that we're all vaping.
Right.
Moving along.
All right. So how do you solve it? We kind of talked about these as we were going through it. Switch up your flavors that you vape. Switch it up. Don't vape the same thing for a given period of time. Switch it up. Enjoy some different flavors. Find some other things that you like, and then eventually go back to that your all day, and it should be just as delicious as you remembered. Try liquids with less sweetener, especially if you are in mouth to lung type devices or pods. Sweeteners tend to not vape very well at low power. They really do need more power. They need more wattage and just bigger coils. I do not like how sweeteners vape in smaller, lower powered tanks. Try liquids with higher PG content. Believe it or not, PG is a better carrier for flavors. Jennifer's in the chat here. I think she would be more than happy to admit that. Go ahead.
I want to add here that I see a lot of people, existing vapors, that are switching to 12 milligram higher PG liquid today. I mean, vapors have been vaping for 5-6 years. I see them switching to 12 milligram, 50/50 or higher PG e-liquid. It's absolutely true, folks. PG carries flavor so much better. There's a sacrifice to that. You're not going to get a huge vapor cloud out of it. Now, for me, and I think I speak on behalf of Phil as well, too, I don't need to see more vapor coming out of my mouth than I did with smoke coming out of a cigarette. I don't need that huge cloud. I don't need to have that huge feeling of my lungs with vapor. I just don't need to have it. So the PG gives me enough vapor to be, satisfactory to me, but it really does. My 60% PG all day vape is just flavor banger. And at 15, 16 watts, you don't need a lot of power to vaporize that liquid because it's thinner. So don't be afraid. Don't listen to what people say, PG allergy. It's very, very rare that's going to happen. Or don't listen to people say, oh, no, you need higher VG, bro, to get those big clouds and all that. That's just ridiculous. If you're a flavor person, higher PG is highly recommended.
Yeah. Hey, let me just prove that I am an unbiased reviewer right now. Larry, you have too much lemon in your Arnold Palmer.
I probably will like it. I should have tried it.
Oh yeah, you would like this. It's very lemony.
All right, and the last one on our list here.
The last one. Don't be cheap, guys. Seriously, I hear this all. My coil lasted 2 months. For God's sake, change your coil, man. They're cheap. You can change your coil every single day, which you don't have to. But if you did, it would still be cheaper than smoking. Okay. Look, I know we're all trying to save money. I think that's important. But do me a favor one of these days. Okay. On one of those coils that you have vaped for 2 months, tear it open and look at the inside and see if you make that same mistake again.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's really, really annoying to me. But listen, if you're getting a week out of your coil or 2 weeks out of your coil, great. If you can still maintain the flavor and all that. But, if you're using a coil for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and then you're wondering why you're not getting any flavor, I mean, it's $3. I mean, I don't know. I can speak on behalf of raw coils, like $2.50 for each coil. But even if you're using a $5 coil, once a week is still way, way cheaper than liquid. I do want to have one argument here with RD's corner. PG can make a vape more harsh. That's not true. It's absolutely not true at all. If you take a high PG liquid and put it in a sub-ohm tank and hit it 80 watts, yeah, it's going to be very, very harsh. But at the 15, 16 watts where these liquids are recommended to be used with a higher PG, it does not make the vape harsher. I'm just not buying that argument in the setups that we're talking about. For a mouth-to-lung vape, higher PG is actually better. It does condensate the vapor better in your mouth, and when you swallow it like you do a cigarette, meaning you put it in your mouth. If you direct lung a PG liquid, yeah, of course, it's not designed to be for that. It's designed for a mouth to lung vape. So I know you're seeing it as a vapor, but keep in mind this is the smoker show. So I think it's fair and accurate that if somebody sees that in the chat, they might think that it's harsher, but that's not the case in the proper setup when it comes to PG.
Yeah, agreed. And I'll go ahead and argue another point here. Shane says, if you love flavor, learn to build. Totally disagree with that.
Disagree.
I do not think that you need to build anymore. I think there are some fantastic tanks out there on the market that will give you plenty of flavor. You know, the Nautilus, the Zenith, the 𝗧𝗵𝗲. There's some Nicholas tanks out there. There's some really, really good stuff. Look, I've been vaping since 2009. I vape this stuff. I'm very, very happy with the flavor. I do not think that you absolutely have to build to enjoy flavor. Okay, let's move on because we do want to bring the folks from Lunar Rover on. All right, so dry or burnt taste, much different from poor taste. What is it? When the coil isn't getting enough e-liquid, you're going to notice a dry or a burnt taste. What you're tasting is you're not tasting the liquid anymore. You are tasting the wicking material burning because there's not enough liquid saturating it. Not a good thing. Not a good thing. Okay. So what could cause it? Well, you know, we talk about this a lot. I talk about this in every review that I do. Priming the coil. You have to prime the coil. If the coil is not saturated with e-liquid, if that cotton material isn't soaked and there's dry cotton touching the coil, you're going to get a burnt taste. And by the way, you may actually destroy that coil because there's no recovering once that cotton burns. The liquid is too thick for the coil, so not enough liquid is getting into the coil for that wicking material to stay fully saturated. The airflow potentially isn't tight enough to pull enough e-liquid in. Your draw isn't hard enough to pull the right kind of e-liquid in. Your wattage setting is set too high. This is something that we should break off and talk about a little bit. Again, the coil is at the end of life. That could also cause a dry or a burnt taste, or chain vaping, which is interesting because chain vaping, depending on how you vape, what you're using, your settings and everything, chain vaping can either cause too much e-liquid in your coil, or chain vaping can also cause not enough e-liquid in your coil. So your chain vaping, the coil doesn't have time to replenish the e-liquid that's in that wicking material, and you're hitting it over and over and over again. You start to get a dry or a burnt taste.
Yes, absolutely. I think that the burnt taste is another thing that's a huge turnoff for vapors, especially if they get that one pow, you know, like, what we call a dry hit. Where the coil is completely burning, you're basically inhaling the burnt cotton that comes in you. And I think that looking back at my years of helping people quit smoking, I would easily call this one of the biggest turnoffs. I think people get really, really turned off by something like that because as much as you're burning a cigarette and inhaling smoke and tobacco and paper, it does not come even close to the taste of actually burning cotton and inhaling it into your lungs. But it's something that can be fixed, right? You do it one time, you start to recognize after a while of vaping when you're getting to that point, meaning when your vape kind of shifts midway through. You go from a nice, wet, saturated, flavorful vape and it starts to dry off a little bit. That means most likely you're heading to that dreaded dry hit. And that just takes time for you to be able to recognize. Just because it happens once, you shouldn't give up on vaping. And that's what the show is all about, is for you not to give up on vaping, meaning that there are ways to fix it. And that's what 𝗏 is going to get into here.
Right. So that's burning. And what do we have after?
How do you solve it?
Okay. So what could solve it? What could solve burning? Here's an important note, right? If you have burnt your coil too badly, right? If that wicking material inside the coil is burnt, especially when we are talking about cotton wicking material, not necessarily ceramic, because ceramic you can get back. But if you have cotton in your coil, which I think is a superior taste over ceramic, there's no recovering from that. You cannot repair burnt cotton. So if that's the case, the only solution is to change your coil. Now, if it's not badly burned, this might recover it. The unpowered puff method. So let's go back to the main screen here, D. What's unpowered puff? Remember, we said the act of you drawing on your atomizer actually pulls e-liquid into the coil, right? So if you don't press your fire button, of course, this is impossible with an automatic, right? Maybe not. But if you don't push your fire button and you take unpowered, quick, hard puffs like this, that's going to pull more e-liquid into your coil, and it's going to fully saturate that cotton again. So that is certainly something that you can try. Now, if you do have an automatic, suck harder on it, more harder than you would normally. Okay, so
and another thing that you can possibly do with an automatic. So, example, I have the Juno here. You can remove, if it's a removable pod system, you can remove the pod from the device and kind of cover up the air hose with your finger, and then just give it a little dry suck.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Or what you can do is just pull on it harder than you would normally pull on it. So even though it's going to activate,
this battery's dead.
That's
right.
Okay. You're still going to pull more e-liquid in there.
Yes, absolutely. All right, moving along. What could prevent it? Expanding on that a little bit more, Phil.
I was going to expand on something else because I saw something that I read that was interesting. Okay. So no, go back. Go back.
I'm sorry.
Think about it. I'll break in. That's fine.
Give me a little timing there. All right, here you go.
Right. So try lowering your wattage. Okay, so refer to your coil's wattage recommendations. That I want to talk about off of this slide. We'll talk about it in a second. Try tightening your airflow. Okay, that's going to bring in more e-liquid. Try increasing your draw strength. Try a thinner e-liquid. All of those things are going to potentially, hopefully, prevent burnt or dry taste. Now let's go back to the screen because I wanted to talk about wattage recommendations. So,
correct.
One of the things that we hear a lot from about the Z coils is sometimes people are getting a burnt Z coil. And then I will ask them, what are they running the coil at? And they'll tell me 30 watts because they see it's a 0.48 ohm coil, right? And what they're used to is if they're building something, if they're building a Clapton or something with a higher thermal mass, they're used to hitting that kind of resistance with higher wattage, right? But the Plex coil, the Z coil, is only designed to handle at max 17 watts. That's it. It's designed to be an efficient coil. It's a very thin material. It has a very, very low thermal mass, so it doesn't need a lot of wattage. So, whether it be a Z coil or whether it be another coil, do take a look at the recommended wattages of those coils and try not to go, like if it's recommended from 40 to 70, which is kind of an odd number, but I've seen it. Try to stay closer to the 40, work your way up a little bit, but try to be under the 70.
The beauty of having an adjustable device is one of the reasons why we suggest a 𝗀𝗡𝗅. It's very, very simple, up to 40 watts, very, very simple menu. The beauty about having that adjustable wattage is that even though sometimes, coils have a recommended wattage, if you try to push them too hard, because of the type of liquid that you're using, they might not just work well. And I find myself doing this even today as an experienced vapor. I'll pick up a coil, I'll try it with a particular liquid, and I put it into where I like it, 16, 17 watts, and it's just not keeping up. I'm experienced enough to know that based on my puff pattern, meaning how I vape, I like to take 3 puffs back to back. That's just how I like to vape. Depending on the nicotine strength, I might vape more, I might vape less. I can tell that the coil is not keeping up. So before getting to that dreaded dry hit that we were talking about earlier, I will cut down the wattage a little bit. So this time I'm hitting 17 watts, I'll go down to 16. I'll go down to 15. And then I'll continue to vape and see if it keeps up there. And if I see that it's keeping up there, now I know on this particular liquid, in this particular coil, in this particular setup, my ideal wattage in order for me to keep up is at 15 watts. So even though sometimes it does have recommended, there's other factors that can play. Having a variable wattage device or an adjustable wattage device, I should say, is a great tool for somebody that's starting to be able to fine tune and not get to that dreaded dry hit.
Right. And I agree with John Q. Public. There are some coils that break in. They'll actually start at one resistance and settle in at another resistance. Yes. So if you do have the opportunity and if you can deal with it, start your coil off at a lower wattage and work up a little bit as you vape it. Another thing too is, and this happens to me, I would imagine this has happened to a lot of you. You take your device out of your pocket, you don't realize you came off of your setting, and you now have your coil that is supposed to be set for 15 watts and you have it set for 80 watts. You don't see it and you go ahead and hit it, right?
Yeah.
And then you get a mouth of liquid hot magma. You've destroyed your coil, but more importantly, you'll notice that even if you change your coil, it still tastes burnt. Why is that? That acrid taste, that terrible taste that you got, stays in the shaft. It stays in the shaft. It stays in the mouthpiece. So at that point, it might be time to actually rinse the tank out, clean the tank out, put some vapor towel in the air shaft, put some vapor towel in the mouthpiece, and try to get as much of that taste and that flavor out, because that will permeate an atomizer.
Let's move along, Phil. We're running out of time. Let's go
I
with
know. Don't worry, we're getting to you. All right, Lunar Rover, we're getting to you. Condensation. What is it? First of all, it is not leaking. It is different from leaking. When you stop vaping, there's going to be vapor that remains in the coil chamber, in the air shaft, and in your mouthpiece. That vapor something's got to happen with the vapor, right? It's got to do something. What it does is it condenses back into a liquid. That liquid has to go somewhere. It goes back into your atomizer. But the problem is it goes back into the air shaft of your atomizer, right? So that could lead to gurgling. That could lead to flooding. That could lead to perceived liquid in your mouth. And I say perceived because you feel like you're getting liquid in your mouth when you take a draw on it, but it's actually condensation that you're getting into your mouth. And it could also get onto your device underneath your atomizer. All right, so that's what condensation is, and it is very, very different from leaking.
And to give you an example, if you've ever boiled spaghetti and you're boiling the water and you put the cover on top and you're just waiting for the water to come up to boil before you put your delicious pasta inside, and then you just lift up the lid, you'll see all the water specks that have collected on the top of it's exactly the same thing in a vapor device. There's going to be these droplets that are going to be formed inside the shaft of the atomizer simply from the vapor that keeps, coming up and down. It's turned into a Pornhub episode today. I swear to God, it really.
He wishes he had to go that far. But next slide. Here we go. Yeah. Next slide. All right. So what could cause it? A really good vape can cause it. What?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Also, narrow bore air shaft and a mouthpieces. Okay. So let's go back to me now. So how could a really good vape cause a problem? Well, a really good vape is a fully saturated vape and with a lot of vapor, right? And that lot of vapor does something, and it condenses condenses back into the air shaft, back into the mouthpiece, back into the coil. Now, when you go to a mouth-to-lung device, what you're doing is you're narrowing everything. Your chamber sizes are small. Your shafts are smaller. The inner diameter of the mouthpiece is narrower, okay? And that leads to actually more condensation. You will notice more condensation in your mouth when you are vaping narrow mouth-to-lung devices versus big, massive, wide-bore direct lung devices, okay? Because that vapor can just escape. But some of it is getting trapped when you have a really good mouth-to-lung vape. Unfortunately, it's just a kind of a side effect of a really good vape. Okay, next slide, D.
I do want to say that you've heard me multiple times say, and even when we're in China, I try to explain this wet, saturated vape in my mouth. I absolutely love it. I love it. But that will cause the effect of condensation in there. But to me, that feeling of being able to have like that vapor in my mouth and I feel it wet and sticky and then I inhale it is how I really, really enjoy vaping. So it sounds weird when we say that it's a great vape, but it's absolutely true. And it's the way that I
enjoy it. It really is. It really is true. Like Dimitri calls it a wet vape. I've always called it in the reviews a fully saturated vape. Yes. I prefer a fully saturated vape over a drier vape.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what could solve the condensation problem? The blow upward method that we talked about before, the power of Christ compels you method that we talked about before, and the vapor towel method. Basically, the vapor towel method is spend some time with your atomizer, okay?
Yeah.
So, just take your mouthpiece off, get a little bit of vapor towel, clean in there. Don't drop your mouthpiece on the floor.
You're gonna have to tailpipe it now.
It's down there somewhere. Yeah, I will. Clean around your airflow. E-liquid can kind of seep out. Not e-liquid. I made the mistake. That's leaking. Condensation could seep out of your airflow and maybe get in between your airflow controller, wind up underneath your atomizer, clean underneath there, clean the bottom of your atomizer. Just spend a little bit of time. And it's really not that big a deal once you wrap your head around why it's happening. Okay. And again, a lot of these people, a lot of folks in the chat, they probably experienced this. I would almost guarantee you most of the people have unscrewed a particular atomizer and found a little bit of condensation under there. We just deal with it. A new vapor might be, oh my God, it's leaking. What do I do? Just relax and watch shows like this.
So along with keeping things clean with a vapor towel, a couple more things that you can do here, Phil?
Yeah. This is a good one. Okay. Try continuing your vape after you release the fire button. That's going to reduce the amount of condensation that you're going to receive because the coil is cooling down. You're continuing your vape, and you're pulling that vapor that would normally remain in the device. You're pulling it out. Okay, so if the device sees less vapor after you stop using it, you're going to have less condensation, right? Another thing that you could do, just take a light unpowered puff after you vape, and then finally keep things clean. We just talked about that. So let's go back.
This is one of the things that I do with the 𝗬𝗟𝗡 as well too, because the 𝗬𝗟𝗡 is a really good wet saturated vape. And aside some of the issues that were out there, it was condensating. So some people was like, oh, it's leaking, but it really is not. It is the way that the chambers is designed and the bell is designed for that vapor to like and just come right up to your mouth. I'm doing a lot of hand visuals today, but it's designed exactly the way that we love how to vape, and that wetness unfortunately gets trapped inside the shaft, and it comes down and it condensates through the airflow. And when I use the 𝗬𝗟𝗡, I do exactly this. I'll pick it up and I'll take a vape and I'll let go of the button, so the last split second continues to pull all the vapor that is trapped inside that nice round bell that gives you that nice wet vape. That way it avoids the condensation that comes out of it.
Yeah. So just like Dimitri said, take your vape, release the button, keep going, and that's going to pull that vapor out of the other chamber. So you don't have to be as dramatic as that, right? Or when you're done, just take a quick unpowered puff. That'll clear it out again.
And
right?
the Oscar goes to. All right, let's get to this one. This one's a biggie.
Okay, so this is the biggie. Leaking. Oh, this is the worst. So how is leaking different from condensation? Well, leaking, it's pretty much the worst thing that could possibly happen. This is when you leave your tank and you come back to it and the e-liquid has drained itself out of the tank and it's running down the side of your atomizer or of your device. That's leaking. So, you know, what can cause that? Let's go ahead and take a look. So typically leaking is caused by damaged seals and or O-rings, missing O-rings. Also, if the liquid is too thin for the coil and the coil is just allowing that liquid to go into it, it's got to go somewhere after it fills up. It's going to go out the airflow. The coil, again, is at the end of its life. That could cause leaking because that wicking material in there isn't going to be able to hold the e-liquid anymore. So it's going to go in and out the airflow. And also flying. Flying will also cause leaking due to the pressure changes that we're going to get to later on in the program. Hopefully.
I do want to mention every atomizer that you're going to buy is going to have a little baggie like this, right? And what is that in there? I mean, it's there for a purpose because O-rings do get with the different types of liquids, eat them up quicker. Unscrewing and screwing constantly will make the O-ring deteriorate and so forth and so forth. So keep that little baggie around because you never know when you might need it. If something is leaking, that means that there's a loss of pressure, and something is happening for that liquid to keep going into your atomizer when you're not using it, and eventually it's going to come down from the only place that it knows how to come down to, and that is the actual airflow hose that go in there. So make sure you keep this little baggie of O-rings. Great new tip for new vapors.
Right, buddy. You know, those O-rings may look scary to new vapors. Don't let them scare you. They're just there to help you out of a leaky situation.
Oh, I see what you did there. So continuing now, how to solve it.
All right, so what could solve it? We already kind of talked about this. Verify all the O-rings are in place and undamaged. For example, the bottom of the Z coil, there is a tiny little O-ring there, and I can't tell you how many people that O-ring has fallen off just by them replacing the coil, right? So you have to make sure and be aware that all of your O-rings are there and not missing. Also, take a look at your O-rings. Are they cracked? Are there chunks missing out of them? Are they broken? Time to replace them. Might be time to replace your coil. Other things you can do: try a thicker e-liquid. If you're the liquid holes in your coil are too big for the e-liquid that you're using, you might want to try a thicker e-liquid. Some tanks, they leak when they're on their side, right? So try keeping your tank upright if possible. A good design won't allow it to leak if it's on its side, but you know that could certainly be something that could happen. Don't leave unused tanks full of e-liquid for extended periods of time. I am the worst when it comes to that. We'll talk about that in a second. Or it may just be time to replace the tank. Maybe the tank is broken or damaged, or there's not a good seal on it. Hello, Matthew Salter. Welcome to the program. So, you know, as you can imagine, as I test many different tanks, I don't know if you can see back there, but like I have, I don't know, like 20 or 30 tanks, all full of e-liquid. And I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't do that, because I guarantee you, if I take some of those right now and put them like this, they're going to just dump e-liquid out, right? Even if the liquid is the right kind of viscosity for the coil that's being used, because they're sitting there for so long, that coil is just absorbing the e-liquid, and it's pooling right underneath by the airflow, and then when you tip it, it all leaks out, right? So if you're going to leave a tank for an extended period of time, make sure it doesn't have any e-liquid in it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And based on the tips that Phil gave you as well too, keep in mind that even sometimes leaving the tank overnight, meaning you finish your last vape at 10 o'clock at night, if that's the time that you go to bed, you wake up 8 o'clock in the morning, there is a possibility that first pull that you're going to take will be a little bit gurgly, or there's a possibility that some e-liquid might, especially if you chain vape a lot and you let go of the device and you set it down and the coil and the tank itself is still hot. That capillary action that we're talking about is the actual liquid that's going in through the cotton into the coil will continue. So you might see some leaking when you get up in the morning as well too. That is to be expected. Nothing to worry about. You don't have a broken tank or anything like that. Power of Christ, my child, or a little vapor towel.
Yeah,
and continue.
And you know, different scenarios will cause, like if it's sitting in a hot car, right? That the liquid could thin out. You could get a little bit of gurgle. I'll give you a perfect example. I left a Zlyde tank. I forgot it on the outside by the dock. 2 days it's been sitting in the Florida sun. So as you can imagine, when I picked that up a little bit gurgly, right? Yeah. It just sat there in the heat. So you know, that's something that could happen. And you know, there were a lot of troubleshooting tips and tricks that we gave you here. Hopefully you won't have any problems at all. But if you do run into problems, don't panic, right? Don't panic. You just think about it. It's a little bit different from a cigarette. A cigarette, you take a stick out of a box, you light it on fire, and that's all you have to think about. This is, I don't want to call it more complicated, because it's really not. It doesn't have to be. You just need to, when you run into these things, if you run into these things, just know how to approach them and understand why they're happening.
A question in the chat, which we just showed from James West. I don't know if you just came in. Is there any way to help keep liquid from building up between the drip tip and the chimney of a tank while vaping? Just pull on it while you let go of the button. So, I mean, continue your draw a little bit. That way that vapor does not get stuck in between the drip tip and that little part inside the chimney. Eventually, there will be a little bit of buildup. Just take your drip tip out, put a little towel inside and absorb it. But the only way really that you can prevent that is just to continue to suck a little bit after you let go of the button while you're taking a puff. Just a couple more questions from the chat for your hill. Let me just get these through really quick. Okay. Alexia Press, I do chain vape. Some devices tend to get too hot after a while, and they're usually changed to a different device. Just wanted your opinion on that. It's something that happens. Some devices, the tanks will get warm. I know Phil's been testing out the E-Roll, which is one of our advertisers. We'll show you an ad here in just a little bit. It does get warm after a little bit chain vaping. That's just some of these low power devices are not, they're designed for higher liquid. So if you keep chain puffing on them, you will get a warm tank or maybe a warm device. And that's something to be expected. It's nothing to be worried about.
Yeah, and one thing that I will say, that no matter how hot a device has ever gotten on me, still won't burn you like the end of a cigarette will.
Yeah. So also for Sonia Marks, I'm about to convince a friend to switch vaping. I'll let her try a few devices. Endura T18, 𝗀𝗄𝗍. She says it's too strong for her. I gave her 6 milligram, 5 milligram, and even 3 milligram. What could be the problem? You know, I don't think it's a matter of it's too strong. This is gonna sound like I'm a douche, but either they're not ready to quit smoking, or B, it's just different to them from a cigarette, and they're trying to use that as an excuse. You can't tell me that 6 milligram inside an Endura T18 is strong when you're lighting up paper and tobacco and inhaling it into your lungs, right? I think it's just a different process, and I think that if anything, if they're completely ready to switch, and please feel free to jump in here, Phil. If you're ready to switch, work through it, guys. Just work through it for a few minutes. Just keep puffing on it.
Don't make me do the whole.
No, we don't. We're running out of time.
Yeah, I mean, we all know when you have your first cigarette, you cough.
Yeah.
And you work through it. You work through the cancer stick.
Yeah.
So if you work through the thing that will give you cancer to become a smoker, do me a favor and work through the thing that won't give you cancer, because eventually you're not going to cough anymore and it's going to be just fine.
Especially if they're ready to.
But there are things you can try. You could try a little bit thicker, little higher VG that smooths things out a little bit. You could try lowering your wattage a little bit. You get her a device that's maybe adjustable as opposed to single wattage device.
Yeah.
So there are definitely things that you can try, but work through it.
And also how they puff.
Right.
𝗧𝗵𝗲 put a really good point inside. Make sure they're not direct lunging an MTL device. That's going to be harsh, or vice versa. If they're down mouth to lung in a direct lung device, watch the puff pattern, how they're actually inhaling the vapor into their lungs. So hopefully they'll take flight with us and leave cigarettes and come over here on vapor airplanes. Speaking of vapor airplanes, how about traveling and flying with your gear?
We're not going to do that. Let's do that. Let's do that a little bit later on. I want to get to let's get to a commercial break. Let's get to Lunar Rover, and then we'll try to get to that later, because we still have some video to show you guys. And if we have to, we'll move traveling to another show. We'll try to get to it tonight.
Okay, just give me 1 second to get everything ready here, and you just caught me off surprise. I had everything else.
I'm sorry, pal.
Ready.
I like I don't know if it's Limner or Limner, but I like his comment here. I figured I was much better when I figured out that my tanks leak about as much or less than my old Zippo lighter did. Once I accepted that, life became a lot easier for me to deal with. That's cool.
All right, let me play this couple of ads, and we will be right back. And that was the Innokin Gala from Innokin, which I'm using here. Just a little tip on this. I hate to break mid-commercial, but the 0.5 ohm coil that comes with it, which is a Plex coil, does not work very well with regular nicotine. So I suggest that you use a salt-type nicotine with a 0.5 ohm coil. But in the package, you get a 0.8 ohm ceramic coil with it. And I was really, really interested in trying that out, and I gave this tip to Phil as well, too. I filled the 0.8 ohm ceramic coil with 12 milligram nicotine. This is actually this Let's Vape stuff that we got from the UK. This has just a great throat hit for a liquid. 12 milligram, 50-50, nice to see a new line. Unfortunately, not in the US, but in the international market launch. This is from Let's Vape. So I put the 12 milligram inside this, and it's just vaping fantastic. Good, satisfying hit. All right, one more, and we're going to be right back. that was a little bit abrupt, but with much pleasure, we want to welcome our guests here now on the 𝗃𝗪𝗧 Show. From, of course, a Lunar Rover, one of our sponsors
guys,
here.
today
Oops,
we are going to be
you need to stop. All right, and of course, I'm talking about Max and Steve, and I only see Max. Why do I see Max? Oh, you need to unmute if you don't mind. There.
Sorry about that.
That's
Steve
okay.
is coming. He's on his way. How you guys doing?
Oh, okay. We're doing fantastic. Thanks for joining us. For those of you that don't know, you might see Max here in the chat every week answering questions. And
now you know what he looks like. That is his lovely face right there, everybody. That's who you're talking to.
Now you can put a face to the name that you see in the chat every week.
I'm good.
All right, come on in, Steve. And there's his partner, Steve. Which, by the way, ironically, Steve will come a little bit more into the shot. I got to meet Steve first via a telephone call, and if I'm not mistaken, it was 2014 or maybe 2015, Steve.
Yeah, it was probably 2014, maybe to start.
Yeah, it was a very, very long time ago. But before we get into Lunar Rover, I'm really, really interested in hearing about your stories because obviously you discovered vaping to quit smoking. So let's start with you first, Steve.
Great. Yeah. It's a pretty simple story. I mean, I was at a party. I saw someone with a vapor product. And I have to take it back, actually. In 2007 or 2008, I ordered an _Joy kit from London. Had it shipped in. I was like, what is this? If this could work, it'd be amazing. I tried everything before to quit. And I didn't really know what to do with it at the first time. I didn't understand the nicotine numbers and what the difference was between the regular nicotine or not. And I used it for maybe a day, went back to smoking and threw it out. Then I saw another device at a party, and I actually took it from this person and pulled. I said, I tried one of these. It doesn't work. It was a bigger device, and I was like, wait a minute.
Imagine that.
This might work.
Yeah.
You know. So went into a vapor shop, got one of these bigger devices, and it was great from a satisfying vapor perspective. But the taste, I just couldn't get around. I wanted a cigarette taste.
Yeah.
I didn't understand why they couldn't make a cigarette flavor, and the tobacco taste was just something that I personally can't stand.
Yeah.
We went into the process with a lot of different e-liquid manufacturers, and we went through every single flavor that they could use, and I just really averse to it. So we wanted something really natural.
Yeah. How about you, Max?
More than 25 year smoker. I mean, up to about 2 packs a day at my maximum. Excuse me. About 2014, got the urge to try something else. So I think I bought a blue e-cig, and that sucked. And then I went to a vape shop, wanted some help, and they were trying to convince me to start with like a blueberry flavor or something like that. That wasn't what I was looking for. I needed something that reminded me of cigarettes. They gave me what their version of a tobacco was. That was disgusting. Mm-hmm. Got together with Steve. We sort of talked about it. We said we could build a better mousetrap. I think there's a market out there for people who are looking for cigarette flavors, at least initially. Yeah. I'm not saying you don't eventually migrate to flavors. We all did and do. But, initially people want a cigarette flavor, I think. And that's my story. And I tried patches and gums and everything before that. And the only thing I didn't try was drugs. Yeah. And such. But this vaping was the only thing that worked. Yeah. That was it.
Do you consider yourselves, after you found the right device, I'm not talking about experiment with the electronic cigarettes, but after you found the right setup, do you consider yourselves automatic switchovers? Meaning that you found this and you're like, well, there's no reason for me to go back to cigarettes anymore.
You want me to go for, I could say that I at least saw the potential for me to switch with the right device. I still was hard. I bought it. I loved it when I first left, but I smoked a cigarette when I left the vape shop for the first time.
Yeah.
It probably took me a couple days or a week for me to finally make the commitment to myself to say, I'm going to go with this 100% and not use both.
Yeah. How about you, Max?
I had issues. I had to stop anyway. So
yeah. Max?
Yeah, me too. I mean, I walked out of the vape shop and had sort of my quote unquote last smoke. But then I saw a lot of potential in what I was trying. I was like, this thing might actually work. It was the first time I ever felt that something would work. And that was the biggest game changer for me.
And that goes to show how important tobacco flavors are. I think it's not discussed, unfortunately, especially the last 2-3 years, enough amongst the vaping community, because a lot of us have been vaping for 5, 6, 7, 10 years that we've gotten away from the tobacco flavors. but they're extremely vital to make the conversion. And I'm sure it's something that you guys run into after you decided to make this company constantly, right?
I can tell you a funny story. I mean, we visited probably when we were getting started, we probably visited 1,500 vape shops across 20 plus states. And every time almost every time we'd walk into a vape shop and we'd say, hey, do you get people coming in here looking for tobacco flavors? Oh, no, nobody wants tobacco flavors. And inevitably, a little old lady walks in behind us and asks them for a good menthol.
Yeah.
Or something that reminds them of a Newport or, you know, something like that.
Right.
It happens so often that it sticks in our minds.
You know, that's unfortunate because when I hear a vape shop says that there's no demand for tobacco flavors, that means there's no new customers. It's something that we really stress in our Back to Basics seminar. If you don't have demand for anything that's beginner related, including tobacco flavors, you're simply not having any new customers. You're just basically catering to the crowd that every week wants to find out what's the newest and the greatest and the hype release, meaning it's the existing customers that always come into your shop.
And I think it's more also than just tobacco flavors. I think it's flavors that, and you know, we make a big distinction, like our flagship product are these nets, these naturally extracted tobaccos that we started with, and we have other flavors too, obviously. But it's not so much that it's a tobacco flavor, it's a flavor that reminds a person of a cigarette, because a person that's trying to quit is not walking in looking for a strawberry donut or a milkshake or whatever. They're looking for something that reminds them of their cigarette.
And sometimes even no flavor e-liquid works better than one flavor. And we always suggest 2 devices because even in the process of switching, you want to keep your mind guessing. So it's best to have 2 devices to start with. That you can actually have 2 flavors. So when one does get a little bit lame and boring, you can switch it over to something else,
right?
Even if it's 2 different nicotine levels. To have that ability to move, you know, with 2 devices makes sense because they used to sell starter kits with 2 batteries, 2 tanks, and you could get 2 different juices in it, and they had it reasonably priced. That was when the devices were a little smaller. Now they're, you know, but still the same way that I quit and advise people today.
For years, we were driving around in the car and we each had 2 devices. We had one of our tobaccos in the left hand.
I mean,
I'm saying we had a tobacco and then we had a strawberry mojito in the other hand, and all day.
I'd go out now. I mean, I'd put 3 or 4 devices out just to have, just to keep it, keep it fresh.
I remember when I was at Mountain Oak Vapors, we used to sell the Ego case kit that came with a 1300 mAh and an 1000 mAh Ego twist battery in the zip case and 2 tanks and 2 replacement coils that came in for the C4s or something like that. And that kit, honestly, Phil, helps so many damn people quit smoking, man. I mean, this is really cheap, like $29. Some off-brand in China was making it. It doesn't really make any difference, but it gave the opportunity for somebody to buy, because at the time we used to sell 15 ml bottles of liquid as well too, a 15 ml bottle of each flavored in a tobacco and a kit for under $50, and you're out the door with less than a case of a carton of cigarettes, and you're set for the next 2 weeks. People were buying 24 and 36 at a time.
Yeah, and back then too, there were nicotine strengths that really helped the smoker. There were a whole lot more 18s. There were a whole lot more 12s, not just 0, 3, 6, and 50 now that we have, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why, I'm so happy to have, a company like Lunar Rover and I want to talk to them about, so they talked about building a better mousetrap. So I'm sure that's what led them into creating Lunar Rover and getting involved in the e-liquid business. But, just to have those tobacco flavors and to have those tobacco flavors still on the market at 12, at 18, because those are liquids that I could feel very comfortable when somebody calls in or somebody talks with us either on the chat or on the phone. In e-liquid, I could feel very, very comfortable sending people. Whereas I don't feel comfortable sending them, a 0, 3 or a 6, right?
Yeah.
And some people I don't feel comfortable sending a really high salt nick. So talk to us about what got you started in creating an e-liquid company, and where did the Lunar Rover name come from?
Yeah, good question. The reason we did create the company was there are no good cigarette flavors on the market that are supported by good companies. We actually tasted some pretty good nets. I contacted everyone I could find in the United States. And we had samples coming in. We talked to labs. We talked to independents. There was no good net flavor that was backed by a good customer service, some people that would actually care about the customer and the customer service. And it wasn't a shady sort of method or business like, hey, meet me here, or I'll send it here, or, you know, PayPal. We wanted to have a legitimate company with incredible service. So that was really all as simple as it was. And the Lunar Rover brand, we really loved. We had a friend that actually had the domain lunarrover.com. And we were looking at a list of names, and you guys know, with all the branding that you go through, what the process is like to find a brand name that you can go forward with everything. Is this going to be available? Is that going to be available? So we liked Lunar Rover, the name, but we were trying to fit it in. And then the one small step concept just sort of fell into place as a one small step towards, you know, a tobacco-free life or smoking.
You know, that's pretty cool. The one small step is kind of similar to, you know, our platform concept. It's a platform to get you off of cigarettes. In your case, it's one small step to get off of cigarettes. But I mean, really, it's a giant leap if we think about it, right? I mean, it's a great thing to go from cigarettes to vaping. You use the term net several times, right? I think we should explain to the folks watching what a net is and how it differs from just a tobacco flavored e-liquid.
Sure, that's great. Max loves when I talk about this. There's a few ingredients in e-liquid, which you guys. There's nicotine, there's PGVG, and then there's going to be flavor. So those four primary elements. So we use PGVG, we use nicotine instead of flavoring that we purchase from a flavor house. It's created through an extraction of actual tobacco. So tobacco, we source high quality tobacco. It's steeped for sometimes 8 weeks, depending on the blend and how it turns out. It's then filtered, and that's what uses the flavor. There's no nicotine or any acetone or no nicotine left in the flavoring, which is why we add it, and we have zero as well. But that's what really makes it different. It's that steeping of real tobacco for a period of 8 weeks that extracts that nice, smoky, rich, deep tobacco flavor. And I sort of get frustrated when we talk about this now, because in the U.S., I know you have a lot of international customers, but in the U.S., we can't create more flavors after, a few years ago per the FDA. I love vaping tobacco because you get a different experience with tobacco. You can actually taste so many different notes, and everything you talk about with different levels and temperatures, you can actually experience it with nets. The team that makes our tobaccos, we have so many on the back, we had so many in the back burner that are just delicious. I mean, if you really like tasting tobacco or smoking tobacco, you can really get a great new experience of tobacco through vape. We're hoping at some time we'll be able to do more.
Let me just add so NET stands for naturally extracted tobacco. I just wanted to add that. That's
right.
Yes,
that's what it is.
And I appreciate the explanation. As far as coming out with new flavors, fucking do it. Everybody else is.
Everybody else is doing it. Yeah, absolutely.
We don't function that way, Phil.
That's one of the things that maybe makes us different. I mean,
we stay above board. I mean, to your point about Lunar Rover, we also, brand properly, all adult branded, and we didn't want to be the big juicy fat cloud company. No offense.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk to you about that too, because so you have a couple different tobaccos. You have Virginia and Burley, and I want you to explain the difference between those two. You also have the menthol, obviously, but you also have this cocktail collection. So you have a brandy Alexander, you have a bourbon peach, you have a strawberry mojito, and I don't know if you listened before, but strawberry mojito has become kind of one of my favorites. It's actually something I'm craving at this point, and that's pretty good. And it also has the throat hit that I like. It's an enjoyable vape, right? It's got everything that I look for in an e-liquid. But I noticed that the company is very adult oriented, right? With the tobacco flavors and with the cocktail collection. Was that is that something that you guys thought long and hard about? Or you just wanted to be that kind of company as opposed to, childish and fruity and candy flavors?
Well, 100%. For us, this was a long haul type of endeavor. I mean, we knew we were getting in this business for all the right reasons and for the long haul. we weren't satisfied with coming up with something that was just going to be a fad or a fly-by-night kind of thing. We knew that we were legitimately helping smokers quit, and we wanted to make sure that we were branded properly. Steve can talk about the nets. He's really good about that. But I can tell you that the cocktails, they generally evolved out of a need. As we were talking to consumers of our product, as we were talking to vape shops who wanted to purchase our product, they said, you guys do such a good, professional, sophisticated job developing flavors. Would you consider going sort of, the sweet, desserty route? And we sat back and we thought about it, and let's do a sophisticated cocktail collection. I think there were a few companies at the time that did drinks or something like that. I never really hear about them anymore, but I do still hear about our cocktail collection. So we must have done something right,
Yeah.
Steve,
Now,
Steve, do you want to cut a little bit and kind of explain the differences in the tobacco?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So I actually have them here. So this one here, I'm not sure if you can see, this is our BLK. And this is for someone who smokes, who likes the Marlboro Red cigarettes, the bolder cigarette. It's a darker cigarette flavor is the best way to describe it. Most commonly, people say it's similar to a Black and Mild, if you've ever had one. Some people even say they can taste the wood tip on it. So that's the BL. It's true. We get that a lot. That's the BLK. The GLD is more for a lighter cigarette smoker. So someone that smokes maybe a Marlboro Light or something like that. Yeah. It's a lighter, dry vape. So it's not too much flavor. But again, these both are meant to be used in a higher ohm coil. I used the Zenith one with the 1 point something, high at 1.7, 1.6.
1.6, yeah.
1.6.
They go up to 18 milligram nicotine.
Yeah, they go up to 18, and that's great. The menthol is the other one. And with the menthol, the GRN is the extract from the GLD with a kick-ass menthol blend. And people say it's like a Camel Crush. It's a really strong menthol.
Or like a Newport.
Or like a Newport.
And also, since I've seen the process, because like I said, I've known Steve since they entered into this industry. There's a collection of leaves to steep the flavor out to make these various flavors. And you can see that the leaves that are used on the BLK are darker. They're bigger chunks of leaves. The steeping process is a little bit different to be able to extract because it needs a little bit more steeping time. Where the GLD, the flakes are a little bit smaller. They're lighter color as well too. So it gives you a shorter steep time, and it'll give you more of a smoother, light taste versus the BLK that's out there. Ironically enough, I've had probably more luck with a GLD converting smokers than I've had with a BLK. I think that the BLK is something that more people that love nets will vape than conversions, right?
That's true. My favorite is the GLD. That's what I went for. Like, hey, I'm winning with this. And then the other ones after that were really tough to decide for me because to me that was as close to a cigarette as you could get.
And it's funny because when Phil talked about the cocktail collection, we were actually sitting in a room all together when we were thinking about these names, and we were talking about looking at the future and looking at how we can have products on the market that represent adult nicotine replacement products that are going to be out there. And the whole concept that came up from Max and Steve was absolutely great. The one problem that I have in today's industry is that it seems like these products that are done, manufactured correctly in all the proper conditions, with all the proper testing, all the proper labeling, they taste really good. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. It's just really hard to compete in a space that is overflowing with kiddie labels and just crappy product that anybody's just pumping out.
That was actually going to be a question to them, and I kind of know the answer to it, but has doing things the right way affected you negatively as a business?
It's expensive and it's time consuming. And besides that, we do a lot of advocacy work, as Dimmy is really familiar with. And the problem is that when you do things the right way, it's always the longer way and the harder way. But at the end of the day, we'll see who survives.
Exactly what Max said. I mean, it's a long game for us. It's not a short-term game for us in this business. It's not necessarily, obviously we need to feed families. But this more is a passion business for us. It's a piece of what we do, a huge piece of what we do in our lives. And it's a long commitment that we made to this. We knew it wasn't going to be an overnight success. We know there's a lot of people that are in it for that. And in the short term, they may win, but in the long term, we feel we'll be able to sustain the storm. We've partnered with the right people. We've gathered some really good customers and treated them really well. We have a lot. I mean, customer loyalty is huge to us, and we have customers that we've had for 5 years. I mean, customers call us when they stop vaping, because eventually, you know, that's one thing in the vaping industry is you have to continuously look for smokers, because people stop smoking, they start vaping, and then eventually they go down in nicotine strength, and then they one day want to put it aside and stop vaping, and you lose a customer. You're happy to see. I mean, it's the, you know, those bittersweet moments we have in this industry where you're losing a customer. But that person is now, you know, living the life that they wanted to live. So
we see this business as 40 million opportunities to convert smokers.
Yeah.
That's how we've always seen this business, and that's how we'll continue to see this business.
That's terrific.
And that's where we need help, is we always want to reach more, which is why we support everything you guys do. We don't sponsor any vape events around, because most of the time smokers aren't there. We do more conversation at bars or in hospitals where you see doctors and nurses smoking out back, or in restaurants, you know, where you see the staff that are smoking. We do more events and activities there than we do around vape events. It's just because that's what we're after.
Yeah. And you said something before that's true. First of all, I do want to mention that for people who don't know, you do have a higher VG line. Okay. So if there are vapors out there that are looking for, you know, higher VG and for lower nicotine levels, they do have a line of, I see menthol crush, melon fresco, Tahiti splash, mango swirl, wicked brulee, and pistachio flakes. Now, those don't come in 12s or 18s. They go up to 6, if I'm correct, right?
Yes, there's 036. They come in larger bottles too. They come in 100 mils.
Okay. So, you know, if anybody's interested in supporting Lunar Rover and aren't interested in, you know, the flavors that we typically talk about here, you do have another line. But you said something before that's bittersweet, right? You said you have that customer and, you know, they quit smoking with you and they lower their nicotine level, and then all of a sudden they don't vape anymore. And I think that is bittersweet. What I don't want to happen, and what I've seen time and time again, where that customer does convert over to vaping, they do lower their nicotine level, they do get involved in, you know, the direct lung and everything, and before you know it, they're not being satisfied and they're back to smoking. That's something that really bothers me, right? So what you talked about before is bittersweet, right? That other scenario is just plain old bitter, and I don't want to see that happen. So you guys, if you're not being satisfied, you know, up your nicotine level and
absolutely
get satisfied, guys. Seriously.
I want to bring something up. By the way, the telephone lines are open, 215-383-5752 if you have any questions. Expanding on that and the true mission of Lunar Rover, you also have a Facebook group that you've created as a quit smoking support group. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So we saw the benefit of having Facebook groups. We saw the trend of people getting into Facebook groups and talking about a lot of things. We didn't want to push our product. And that's the wholehearted truth. We wanted to establish a community of people that wanted to quit smoking. And the rules in our group are actually very clear. There's no promotions, there's no advertisements. Every form of stop smoking or smoking cessation method is accepted there. People talk about all their different methods. We happen to have a lot of vapors who are in that group. But the whole purpose of the group, the whole mission of the group is to basically help people quit smoking and provide a forum for them to talk about their struggles, their trials, their tribulations. When somebody goes any predetermined period of time without smoking, we all kind of cheer and sort of support them. I mean, it's a, you know, in the world of Facebook groups, it's not the biggest in the world, but I think we're almost at like 700 members, and it grew completely organically. We don't pay for any of that stuff. You know, we don't pay for, you know, people and likes and all the other tricks that people do in the business. We run it organically. People like my wife, Steve's girlfriend, you know, these are the people that actually help administer it. This is a homegrown thing for us. It's a family affair.
And there's a lot of people that support the show as well that help out in the
Pam. We love
Absolutely.
Pam. Helps out a lot. Pam's really active in it and has done some amazing stuff.
Pam's terrific.
Pam's turning into a vape celebrity, bro. We might have to ask for her autograph next year.
I'm a fan.
Yeah,
Huge
She's
fan.
a vape famous.
Yeah, Pam's great.
Awesome. So obviously you cannot release any new liquid, but what's next for Lunar Rover? I mean, as you guys are evolving and trying to move through this regulatory process and what the FDA has got in store for us over the next 2 years, I mean, ultimately our goal is to still convert smokers, and we have to maintain that path. But what other plans of expansion you guys have?
talk about expansion?
Well, I mean, as far as Lunar Rover goes, we are still on the same mission as to find smokers.
Yeah.
We are maintaining our state level advocacy activities as in many states as we can where we do business. We're still active federally and can be involved in everything that happens there because we still have a long way to go here. This is where we need to recruit more help from other industry stakeholders, people that are in the industry. Even if they don't feel that they're doing everything the right way and don't want to comply, it still matters. Every little bit of help we can get. So
for us, it's about as much education as we can possibly provide. We have some international business picking up. That's been steady. I think for us, it's just about becoming a well-known enough brand that people, are able to find us, are able to continue using our product, that we know it's helping them. So again, we can't release new flavors at this point. It's just fighting the good fight and making sure we all stay to survive, and making sure that when the shit, can I say shit? When the shit hits the fan.
Sure, absolutely.
That there's some companies that stay around, and we want to make sure that we stay above board and we do everything the right way so that, when other people get washed away, we're still here.
And I do believe that we're seeing a shift. I do believe that. I do believe that the time is coming where the vape shops, as the consolidation happens and as some of this industry is clearing up, they're going to realize the need to bring in new customers back and to have hardware and liquid that's going to cater to convert smokers like we used to do back in the day. And I think that the time is coming. It might not be today, but I do believe that that time is coming. You guys also, as many other companies, have launched a CBD line. So if you're interested in CBD, of course, you can find that on lunarrover.com as well, too. And, I just wish you guys the best of the success. You've been great friends of mine for a very, very long time. I've, known Steve since day one, and I just hope you guys continue to grow and get more known.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the mention of our CBD business, and without talking too much about that, because this is really kind of a different topic. But this because it's on the market, everyone sees CBD as a buzzword. The same approach we took to building Lunar Rover and finding the best possible natural extraction of a tobacco flavor. We've dug into the cannabis industry and have found the real truth behind the 3 letters CBD. There's a lot more to it, and I just urge the same people in the industry to be aware of who you're buying it from and make sure it's not just the 3 letters at the fad.
I just want to say 2 things. The only reason that we got into the CBD business was because a lot of the vape shops that we're purchasing our nets said that we do such a fantastic job that they wanted us to venture into the CBD space. That's why we initially started looking into it. And the second thing I wanted to say, guys, is we don't spend nearly enough money on advertising. And for us, it's important to reach smokers. And for everybody that's watching and everybody that's listening or whatever, understand that we wanted to specifically support the Smoker Show because this is our direct audience. These are the people that we want to talk to. We're not interested in the team free shit stuff. We're not interested in any of that side of the world. These are the people that we want to connect with, the people that are looking to quit smoking. And I think you guys do a significant service for that.
Yeah, great show, by the way, today, guys. That information is so helpful to people that are just getting their devices. Or even have had them for a year or so. I mean, I still get calls from people that they've been vaping for a year and say, "Hey, it's gurgling again. What do I do?" So thank you for that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you coming on, Phil.
Yeah, and we appreciate the kind words. I think it would be great if every company was like you, right? I mean, if every company was like 5 Pawns, if it was just classy and adult and we still had those nicotine strengths out there that people need. I believe that there's still a big, strong need for 12s and 18s and tobacco flavors. That's why we're excited to be part of the Make a Switch program, that e-liquid DIY contest that we're involved in, and having guys like you as sponsors of the show. And what you said before, that's your target audience. We are your target audience. We are trying to bring smokers into vaping, right? And to have support from you guys, I think is terrific. So thank you guys very much for being a sponsor of the Smoker Show.
And you're not going to see any fluffy clouds.
We really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. Don't forget to use code. See, I even put your code on there, Phil, right below your face as well, too, since you like it.
We love you guys, man.
Thanks a lot. P. Masardo.
As a very special announcement here tonight, because they're on the show, if you use coupon code Dimitri loves pink, you get 95.
95. Oh my God.
It's
I'm out of
unbelievable.
business.
I'm kidding, by the way. I'm kidding.
15% off using code 𝗃𝗍𝗪 or the Smoker Show at lunarrover.com. Thanks a lot, guys, for having, and have a wonderful summer.
You too.
Thank you,
All right.
guys. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Glad everything's well with you, Demi.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. There they go, everybody. Steve and Max from
Yes.
Lunar Rover. We certainly appreciate them coming on the show.
And
Just
we
great
appreciate them
guys.
coming on the show twice in reality, because they were supposed to be here last night too. So they changed their schedule to be available for tonight. So thank you guys for that.
That was really nice of him taking the time. I do want to play a clip. So I have the option, Phil, of it's just we're running out of time, so I don't know what I should do. I mean, we can have a little bit of fun, and but we can play the Innokin video, whatever you think.
I know. Well, you know what? Let's go back to the purpose of the show. Let's talk about flying with your vape. I don't think that'll take very long.
All right, let me move this,
and then we'll have some fun. Okay, so everybody stick around, and we're gonna have a little bit of fun tonight. We're gonna do a little ball busting, and thank you again to Steve and Max for joining us. All right.
I appreciate
So
it.
traveling and flying, what happens? What's going on? Can I do it? How do I pack? What could potentially happen? Flying with your electronic cigarette gear can be easy if you know what to do. I can't tell you how many times I get emails saying, I'm going to be flying. What do I do with my gear? So this tutorial was created due to the numerous questions and emails we both receive about flying with your vape gear. Remember that vaping on a plane is illegal, okay? So, don't do it. We have to do that. We have to say that. And also, please be smart. Be smart and listen to some of the stuff that we're going to talk about. When you are traveling with your vape gear, please do not become the next mainstream media news story about an issue with vape gear on a plane. Please.
I cringe every time.
That is bad for the industry. That's bad for all of us. Just be careful. Okay.
Absolutely. I cringe every time I see e-cig and airplane in the same sentence, especially somebody that flies like me and you, Phil. We fly like 150,000 miles a year, man. It's really troubling. So what do you need to know about traveling or flying with your vape gear?
Well, guys, here's what you need to know. All lithium-ion batteries must be in your carry-on, period. Don't put them in your checked luggage. Pressure changes on the plane will affect your vape gear. E-liquids count toward your allotted liquid amount that you carry onto the plane. And then I just have a blurb there from the TSA letting you know how much e-liquid is allowed, or any liquid is allowed on a plane. So that's what you need to know. So let's go to the next slide. And how are you going to prepare, right? So here's our recommendations. First of all, if you have devices that have removable batteries, take the batteries out, okay, and put them in a safe battery box that will not pop open. If you have to, tape it shut, okay? All devices that have an internal battery, make sure the device is turned off and you have unscrewed your tank from those devices, okay? Tanks, they really should be emptied, okay? Because if you travel with a full tank, there is the potential that the change of pressure in the cabin will cause the tank to leak, all right? So if you have a device that has pods, okay, think about removing the pods from your device so that those pods don't potentially leak into your device, causing some issues on your device. And of course, store all e-liquids in bottles under 100 milliliters. And of course, those are going to be the bottles that you are going to carry onto the plane. Okay, so that's how you should be preparing and getting ready for your travel, for your flight. Okay, and so how to pack. Okay, here's how I pack. Here's how you should think about packing. First of all, devices with batteries removed can be stored in your carry-on or in your checked luggage. Okay, so if you got the batteries out of them, they can go either in your carry-on or in your checked luggage. Devices with internal batteries must be stored in your carry-on luggage. Do not put devices with batteries in your checked bags. E-liquids can be stored in your checked bags or your carry-on luggage. Now, if you're going to use, or if you're going to bring the e-liquids in your carry-on, they count towards your allotted amount of e-liquid. Okay, so if you are over your allotted amount, or liquids in general, if you are over your allotted amount of liquids, put the rest of the liquids in your checked-in luggage. Then they're fine. Okay. So Here's a tip too. All right. So let's say you have a device and you know that you want to hit that device as soon as you get off the plane. So you don't want to empty the tank out. Here's what you can do. Take that device, store it upside down in your seat pocket in front of you. Okay. If you store it upside down and the liquid ports are in the base of the coil, it won't leak. It won't, just like that. Very good, D. It won't leak, it won't flood, and when you get off the plane, it's going to be ready to go. And those are our tips and information about traveling and flying with your electronic cigarette gear.
And as always, we haven't done this in a while. I think we should remember the root of why we do this show and what vaping is all about. So without further ado, take it away, Phil.
Vaping is safe, right? Nope, wrong. We talk about this a lot. Although most studies conclude that vaping is far safer than smoking, you've heard that at least 95% safer number. We strongly recommend that if you do not vape and you do not smoke, continue to do neither. That's going to be the best thing for you. So what is smoking? Smoking is bad. We know it's bad. It's going to cause cancer, right? Reducing cigarettes through vaping, that's good. Ain't perfect, but it's good. You're still doing damage to yourself. Eliminating smoking through vaping, that's better. If you're a smoker, that's where you want to be. Okay, but not smoking and not vaping, that's the best thing that you could do. Okay, so there's the disclaimer. We are telling you that vaping is much better than smoking, but it's still not completely harmless, right? Also, remember, if you do see a negative article about vaping, question whether or not that article compared the negative to that of a traditional combustible tobacco cigarette. If it does not, in our opinion, it's invalid. Remember that vaping is harm elimination. Vaping is not, or I always do that. Maybe I got it wrong on the slide. Vaping is harm reduction, not harm elimination.
You got it right on the slide, but you have it upside down. Very well said done. I hope you guys enjoyed all the information. These slides will be uploaded on tasteyourjuice.com under the Smoker Show tab. There's, I think, 95, if I counted correctly, now on there, covering everything that we've had in this first season of the Smoker Show, and a lot of great information on there. And thanks for Phil for maintaining that and putting it up there available to all of you guys.
Yes. Very good.
So that's the serious portion of the show. We can have a little bit of fun. I don't know. It's a little bit embarrassing, but I do have a video of us. I was down in Florida this weekend with Phil, for those of you that didn't know. Yep. And I took my daughter and her friend, and we got to hang out, and we had a really good time. We had an amazing time, actually. Friday, we went to my favorite restaurant in 𝗃𝗽𝗀𝗀, at the Lobster Lady. Thankfully, we went about 8 o'clock. All the old people were sleeping, so we got the table. and ordered our much beloved seafood tower, and we ordered some sushi that was just absolutely amazing. It was just a wonderful meal. I had a really, really good time.
Their sushi game is strong over
very,
there,
very
man.
strong.
You know, their sushi was kind of limited when the first couple times I went, but it must have gotten very popular, and people, I think, started talking about it. And they like have a full menu now of sushi. And it's outstanding. Yeah. Really, really good. I'm looking for some of the photos. I'll find them here eventually.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
So, and then Saturday, I had the privilege of inviting a bunch of people over to the house with Phil, and I made Greek-style pork ribs. I made Brussels sprouts and Greek-style potatoes and a Greek salad. I had a lot of fun cooking. Phil has just a wonderful kitchen. We made some beef broth for Larry because he has no teeth, and at his age, he can't be biting into pork. But in general, we had a really good time. We swam in the pool, got in the hot tub. It was a lot of fun Saturday. And then Sunday, my daughter says, well, Larry, by the way, since he's 105, he can't use the tube anymore. So he let us have the tube that you pull behind the boat. And my daughter says, hey, why don't we go tubing? Which was a really good idea for the kids. But for us, my body still hurts, by the way. This happened Sunday. So yesterday I could not move. All my muscles from top to bottom were hurting. Everything was hurting. But we did shoot some video. If you guys want to see it, I'd be more than happy to play it. What do you think? I should play it?
Yeah. We'll show the video. By the way, guys, I didn't think about bringing the windscreen for my my mic, but
yeah, I was about to say
I edited together what I could find.
Good enough. So I hope you guys enjoy it and have some fun with tubing.
And I might have to yell at you to pause some stuff here as we go.
Okay.
Where are we going, D? We're going tubing. Tubing.
which at our age is really an adventure sport.
Yeah. It's an extreme sport.
The results are going to be...
Yeah. I mean, there's a good chance one of us is going to break a hip today.
There is. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I do have like the boat 911 saved on my phone on quick dial.
So we're going tubing. Dimitri's daughter's friend, Dimitri, me.
And our dignity.
Got the tube back, and the what?
And our dignity.
And our dignity. There's a tube back there. And we'll see how long it takes me to knock Dimitri off the tube. All right, so we're going to be able to open up the boat here pretty soon. A lot of canals in Florida, a lot of manatees, so you got to keep the speeds down when you're around the homes and the canals. But right now we're kind of going through 𝗏𝗪𝗔𝗬𝗟𝗏. You see the 𝗏𝗪𝗔𝗬𝗟𝗏 bridge, a couple shrimp boats here on the left, and then we'll go out of the canal, we'll open it up. Well, the bridge is up. I've never seen a bridge up. All right, so this is DME tubing now.
I do want to say that at number one, I call BS on the manatees. I've been to Florida 3 times out in the boat, and I have not seen one of them. So it's got to be a unicorn.
No, it's because you're coming the wrong time of the year, man.
Number two, I want to say that I was the first one to go. This is an untested tube that was not fully inflated correctly. Okay, I just have to set that line on there. So too.
I found out that it is absolutely inflated correctly.
Oh, is it? And then it came from Larry. So I don't know if Larry had put like butter on the bottom or something like that, trying to, I just don't know at his age how he operates the tube. But this is me going first here on the tube.
You know, what I failed to put in this video is you trying to get on the tube and getting into multiple positions until you finally found one that worked, which is on your knees, which is why you were so good at it.
I see what you did there.
You see what I did there? So I'm being really gentle with him right now. But he's hanging on, and I didn't like that, so I needed to take him off. So I do. Right there. A little slow motion action for you, and I saw something like peek up right there, and I couldn't figure out what it was. So what is that right there? Is that an arm? Is that a leg? What is that? I don't know what that is.
I don't know what it is, but I do want to say something. I do want to apologize to all the fish that were in that surrounding area of me falling because I didn't have my swim trunks tied. And as soon as I hit the water, my swim trunks ended up down to my ankles. And I basically flashed every fish that was in the vicinity of me falling down there.
Oh, my God. Yeah, so that is the unknown appendage right there.
This is my daughter.
Your daughter. She did fantastic.
She did really good, yeah. She had a lot of fun. She really liked it.
Wiggling back and forth there. So, yeah, she did a really good job. No issues there at all for your daughter.
I wish I could say the same about you.
I didn't try to flip her because she didn't want to come off the tube. All right, so now this is me. Now keep in mind that I'm used to riding a tube in a certain way, which is on my belly, holding on to the handles in the front. Now look, see, I'm trying. It has fins, so I'm actually trying to. I'm being very aggressive here.
Yeah.
I'm trying to turn it and get out of the way, but I'm not having a whole lot of luck.
At this point here, you look like you've been stranded on an island for like 3 months, and you're getting saved by the Coast Guard. You look miserable. Like, I'm quite sure that this is not the way that you're supposed to be holding a tube with this desperate look on your face.
Definitely not the right way to hold on to. Well, not that tube anyway.
For sure.
Right.
I did slow down though when you told me.
Yeah, well, but see, like you're a very bad tube driver.
No, I'm sorry. I'll
You're
try to do
dragging me
harder
You're
next time.
dragging me too slow. And by the way, look at how you're laughing. You're hysterical.
I know, it was so funny.
Happy.
So what went wrong here, Phil?
Let me explain to you what happened here.
Okay, I'm gonna pause
so now
it.
I'm trying to get on my knees. Okay, so go
Okay.
ahead. Roll the footage, and I get on my knees, and I realize that once I'm on my knees, hold on a second here. You'll see this.
This is the best moment of it.
Yes, I realized that my hair wasn't perfect, so I wanted to wet my hair. Right, so and I did.
It's one thing if you're falling, if somebody's pulling you, but you fell before it even started. There it is.
Look at the laughter.
I literally died laughing there. I was like,
daughter's laughing.
Look at this. Look at this.
You're laughing.
Look at
at me.
that.
Look at this.
What the hell happened? It just.
No,
It just went
trying
by
to wet my hair,
itself.
make sure my hair is good. That's all I'm doing right there.
Oh my god, that was so funny.
So now I'm trying a different position. I'm riding backwards. Sitting down in the tube.
That was not a good idea.
It's not a good idea because where the handles are, there's like nothing to grab onto.
Correct. I definitely think that's not the right way to be sitting
on this defective Larry tube that he gave us. Okay.
I got you open your legs. By the way, I just want to say, opening your legs like that, like, what is that supposed? It's like an aerodynamic move or something. Because
I
you
was
look
just airing things out, man. I was just airing things out a little bit.
You look like you're about to receive the Holy Ghost there. What are you doing with your legs?
Look at how aggressive I am, Dimitri. Play it. Stop being an asshole and play the footage. And I know you're laughing here too.
I laughed at the whole entire thing.
Notice what I do. I actually flip around while the tube is going.
That's very impressive. Very impressive.
Watch as I do this now. It's very impressive. It's coming up because I can't hold on. So I reach around here and I flip over. Look at that! While the tube is moving.
That's just amazing.
Have
you been in the circus before? I mean, that's really acrobatic.
It's unbelievable. And then, as I was editing this video, right, I noticed something. As I was editing this video right here. Can you hear that? Can everybody hear what you just said? What you say is we should leave him out there.
Oh, did I? I didn't mean that.
You come over to my house, you're on my boat, I take you guys tubing, and then I fall off the tube, and you want to leave me out in the water. That's just not nice at all. Oh, my God. So anyway, that was a little bit of video from our tubing adventure there.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. My daughter really enjoyed it, so I appreciate you doing that and taking us out. And thanks to Larry for giving us the tube, because we'd have to do a Patreon and a GoFundMe to buy one. So
yeah. Well, we're gonna buy a tube that you can actually hold on to. It'll be fun.
I saw a tube ad the other day. It's a tube that you put over your whole body, and you stick your hands out like this, and it surrounds your whole body. So the whole thing. So you're just like basically twisting and turning on the water. It's really cool. It's like $170.
We should get that. So like you could roll with it.
Yeah. It's really
that
cool.
sounds dangerous.
But
Larry,
it's funny. I saw that ad on my Facebook, and this is how these algorithms on Facebook. We talked about tubing somewhere in a post on Facebook, and next thing you know, I'm getting ads for tubes.
That's amazing. That's unbelievable. So yeah, Larry, I know now that the tube is supposed to be used on your knees, because after we went tubing, I researched that tube and I found out exactly how to ride it, which I probably should have done before we went out.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it was a good time.
I want to see if I have any questions here that I missed. What about if you went to an expo and bought a lot of devices? Will custom held up a sealed and an unopened box if you pack in your check luggage? If it's got a built-in battery, I suggest you put it on your carry-on. If it does not have a battery inside, if it's sealed or whatever, and you put it inside your bag, nobody's going to open it. No, they will not unseal the package for you if you have it in your carry-on. But if it has batteries, put it in your carry-on. If it doesn't have any batteries, put it in your check-in.
Yeah, I can tell you that I have traveled with a lot of vape gear. I've never had anything confiscated. As long as you do things correctly, I've had them pulled, I've had them looked at, I've had to explain them at times. Especially in the earlier days of traveling with vape gear, but never have I had anything confiscated.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you did have your scissors at Shenzhen Airport. confiscated. Well, they let 18650 batteries, but your little scissors and your build kit was confiscated in Shenzhen.
Yeah, no, not the scissors, my clippers.
Oh, the clippers.
Yeah, my safety scissors go through, but my clippers always get. I gotta figure out if there's any TSA approved wire clippers.
You could have full run out of the house with Phil still out in the water. Yeah, I could have possibly done that, but I would not do that to my buddy. It was fun. Can
tanks crack from air pressure? Asked Pam. I don't believe so. No. That's never happened to me.
I've never seen a tank crack. It will leak. The pressure will force it. Just like if you see a bottle of water after you've been flying and it starts to descend, the bottle is shrunk inside, but it's not going to break. It's just going to force the liquid to come out and be a dirty liquid mess all over you.
Yes.
All right, we covered everything. We showed you tubing. We gave you tutorials. We had guests on, a complete last episode of season 1 of the 𝗧𝗵𝗲 𝗦𝗪𝗀, and we will be taking a break for the month of July. Now, having said that, officially a break for the 𝗧𝗵𝗲 𝗦𝗪𝗀, but if Phil feels like it and wants to come on live with Bill or something and do like an episode midway July, maybe not. But we do need take some time. I'm leaving Sunday to go to Greece for my vacation with my family. I will be doing some Facebook Lives there from a few various things I will be attending, but officially the 𝗧𝗵𝗲 𝗦𝗪𝗀 will relaunch August the 5th with a whole new season 2 of the 𝗧𝗵𝗲 𝗦𝗪𝗀. But recapping back to the 33 episodes, Phil, a lot of great information. And I think sometimes it gets lost, especially for people that just come and just watch one episode. They don't realize that we have another 32 episodes that's completely filled with tons and tons of information helping people to convert.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So this break that you're taking in July, I don't think there is going to be a 𝗧𝗵𝗲 show. I think we want to come back fresh in August. I know we already have some travel lined up in August. But we do want to, get our sponsors back on board, recap and cover some of the information that we covered before, because I think it's important. I think it's important that we talk about some of these things again for people who are just joining us for the first time. I think that's important. I'm going to try to get some reviews done in July. I am taking a week off beginning of July. I'm going back to Rochester. Maybe you'll get to see the old vape cave there. I do have a question about from Lizard. Is the Russian 91 still a good tank? I was considering the new 𝘃_fund. Yeah, first of all, which new 𝘃_fund are you talking about, Lizard? Are you talking about the light? Because the light just has some different features and functions. But look, if I reviewed something back in the day and I said it was good, it's still good today. It's
and honestly, the 91 with a 𝘃_fund, there's not much of a difference in the vape. I'll be completely honest with you. The chimney is very similar. The way that the air hits the coil is very, very similar. If you're happy with a 91, and I hate even saying this, even with our own products, if you're happy with the Zenith, there's no reason for you to buy this Light. If you want to buy this Light, it would really help us. But I would tell you that if you're happy with the Zenith, you don't need anything else. Stop chasing the dragon. If you're happy with a 91, you don't need the 𝘃_fund Light. As much as I love Flow and I use the 𝘃_fund Light myself, no. If they vape similarly, you're not gonna get a wow experience different than the other.
Now, chamber size, everything's very, very similar. What I would be more concerned with Lizard is, what are the features that you look for, right? Do you like the way the Russian 95 fills compared to the new 𝘃_fund Light? Do you like the way the Russian 95 adjusts its airflow compared to the new 𝘃_fund Light? I would be more interested. I would be more concerned with the features that you like over, the quality of the vapes, because I think they're going to be very, very similar, right? I think that makes more sense.
Also, Angela said that the advice last time has really helped her. So thank you, Angela, for that. We appreciate the feedback.
That's terrific. Are we going to end tonight with the video from Dash Vapes? I think we should.
It's going to put us. It's going to put us 2.5 hours if we do that. So it's really up to you.
Well, let's go ahead and end this show with that, and then maybe we'll show it again when we pick back up in August. How about that?
I certainly can do that. I wasn't prepared.
Because I think they did a really good job. I think it's about one of our sponsors, Innokin. They were talking about they do a series. They do a history of. I think they just did a history of 𝗃_𝗃𝗃. Now they did a history of Innokin. They contacted us because they wanted us to be part of the video. And the lovely Pam gets a mention in this video too, which is why I wanted to play it.
Speaking of history, you do have your vaporversary coming up, so talk about that briefly, and then we'll say our good nights.
July 7th, it's coming up. I'll actually be in Rochester for it. I don't know if I'm going to do anything for it, but July 7th will be my 10-year vape anniversary. Ladies and gentlemen, I have now been vaping for 10 years solid with no cigarettes. I have never been happier. I have never felt better. Even at my, Dimitri likes to remind me how old I am all the time, even though he's not too far behind me.
I don't have an AARP card. Just saying, I don't have an AARP card. That's all I'm saying.
Contrary to what some of the mainstream media news articles will tell you, I'm still alive. I'm still alive. I'm still a very, very happy and healthy vapor. How about that? Yeah. And I like flavors, so I think that's pretty good. And I hope anybody who is watching who has quit, if you quit last week, I look forward to congratulating you on your 10-year vape anniversary. If you quit 5 years ago, again, congratulations. I don't care. If you're watching the show for the first time and you're thinking about making the switch to vaping, good for you. Good for you. And I hope that I'm around to congratulate you on your 10-year vape anniversary.
Well, congratulations. And if it wasn't for you 10 years ago quitting, I would have never met you. So I'm thankful for electronic cigarettes as well, too. And also something that's not mentioned enough, in my opinion, is I know that there's thousands of people that you've helped through your videos quit smoking, and I'm sure that they appreciate the journey that you have been with them as well, too. All right. That's it for the Smoker Show. If you want to stick around and watch this 15-minute video, it's really, really interesting. We talk about some of our products. We talk about some future products that are coming out as well, too. And a little bit of the history of Innokin as well, too. We certainly thank them. But we also have to thank all the rest of our sponsors, Phil, which are...
Those sponsors would be, of course, Innokin, which you are about to hear from right now. Juno, they make a really good closed pod system that have helped a lot of people quit smoking. Lunar Rover, you heard from Max and Steve here tonight. Use coupon code. We'll go with the 𝗃𝗚𝗪𝗀 one again. Coupon code 𝗃𝗚𝗪𝗀 for 15% off of your order over there at Lunar Rover. My Vapor Store, thank you guys for being a sponsor. If you use the coupon code MTL10, you're going to get 10% off of the platform products that Dimitri and I are behind. The fine folks over there at 5 Pawns make some fantastic liquids. Naked 100, I have been enjoying the hell out of their all melon lately. And of course, Joytech. Joytech, I think, is another company that really never lost focus on smokers, and I'm proud to have them as a sponsor too.
And maybe some new sponsors coming in August as well too. I know we've got a couple of people lined up. But anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. We certainly appreciate all your support. We thank the vapors that come every couple weeks and hang out with us and give their help. We appreciate you for supporting the show and understanding the effort that me and Phil are putting behind doing something like this. And without further ado, I hope you enjoy the video that me and Phil participated. We'll see you again in August.
Dimitri, enjoy your break, pal.
Thanks, buddy. I need it.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Many people would put Shenzhen-based vape manufacturer Innokin at the top of their list for vape products. They helped pioneer the box mod revolution and shape the industry into what we know it is today. With 71 design patents, 40 patents for utility models, and 61 processing patents, innovation is their #1 priority. So, how did they do it? This is the history of Innokin. In 2011, James Lee decided to start up a vape company and named it Innokin. And the wheels pretty much instantly started rolling with one of the first 𝗃𝗃𝗪𝗔 products on the market, the 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗪16. This was one of their first 𝗃𝗃𝗪𝗔 designs that paired with most ego-styled batteries. It was one of, if not the, world's first dual-coil 𝗃𝗃𝗪𝗔 with a replaceable atomizer/coil. This was at a time when things were pretty much the same when it came to ego-styled tanks, and this completely changed the game. People were praising the 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗪 for the vapor and flavor production, so much to the point that Innokin never really changed it all that much. They did some small improvements and design changes with the 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗪16D and 16S, but the overall design of the tank remained the same. It wasn't until the 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗪30 when they beefed up the design to hold more e-liquid and produce more flavor and vapor. But they also needed a device to pair along with the success of the 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗪, so they developed the infamous lightsaber looking mod, the iTaste SVD. SVD stood for superior vaping device, and they held nothing back when it came to build quality. It featured a telescopic tube for the battery compartment, so you can use virtually any 18,000 series battery. You also got an LED screen and variable wattage. All this was insanely advanced for its time, but Innokin did not stop there. Soon after the SVD, they took it a step further with the SVD 2.0. It featured a sleeker, smoother design, higher wattage output, and got rid of the telescopic design. But that's not even the most exciting part. Innokin also partnered up with Evolve to bring the extremely popular DNA chipset to the SVD. Now, as cool as the SVD was, many users were still a bit off-put by how bulky it was, and new users were off-put by it because of the removable batteries. Innokin thought of that and designed what I would call probably the most influential box mod that ever hit the market, the iTaste MVP. The MVP was a much needed break from most advanced devices out at the time. It introduced a boxier, more rectangular shape, and I'd say this was the first initial step in putting box mods on the map. It featured a whopping 2600 mAh battery powering a protruding Ego 510 connector. But I think the coolest part was the full-size USB-A located on the bottom to charge any of your other electronics. So not only was it a vape, it was also a battery pack. Over the years, Innokin improved the MVP by adding new and exciting features. As of this video, there are currently 4 iterations of the MVP, but more on that later. Things were booming for Innokin. Things were doing so well that they just couldn't keep up with production and had to move to a much bigger facility only a year after the company started up. Soon after the SVD and MVP series, Innokin also introduced the 𝗃𝗽𝗏 series of mods. These were more or less a budget-friendly line targeted towards regular consumers. However, they didn't quite hit the same popularity as their previous devices. The 𝗃𝗽𝗏 1 was pretty much just an SVD without all the bells and whistles, and the 𝗃𝗽𝗏 2 looked like this. The last 𝗃𝗽𝗏 device was released around mid-2018, labeled the 𝗃𝗽𝗏 𝗏𝗡. It featured a 40-watt output powered by a built-in 1300 mAh battery. Now, if I'm being honest, when I first started getting into the vape scene, which would have been around 2013 to 2014, Innokin seemed pretty quiet. Working at the downtown Toronto Dash Vapes location, we never really got any Innokin products in. This was pretty much around the same time when 𝗃𝗽𝗏𝗏 and Aspire started heavily dominating the vape scene, and Innokin kinda got left in the dust. They released the MVP 3 and 4, which was honestly kind of quiet when it came to hype and popularity. Innokin stayed fairly quiet until around 2017 when they got in contact with 2 of the most prominent members and pioneers of the vaping community, 𝗃𝗽𝗏𝗏 and 𝗦𝗏𝗢, also known as the Vaping Greek. The team collaborated to make the 𝗬𝗟𝗡𝗏 mouth-to-lung RTA, which to this day is still one of my favorite tanks for mouth-to-lung. I feel like the 𝗬𝗟𝗡𝗏 definitely helped bring mouth-to-lung vaping to the mainstream market, as around the time, 95% of affordable rebuildable tanks were designed around direct-to-lung vaping. The 𝗬𝗟𝗡𝗏 featured an extremely easy-to-use build deck and a plethora of different airflow options. After the incredible success of the 𝗬𝗟𝗡𝗏, Phil and 𝗦𝗏𝗢 has signed onto Innokin to help develop new, innovating products. So with this being the history of Innokin, I thought, who better to talk to than 𝗃𝗽𝗏𝗏𝗏 and 𝗦𝗏𝗢 the Vaping Greek? Hey, how's it going, guys? Now, before we get started, I just wanted to say thank you very much for taking the time out of your day for this. I really appreciate it. I guess the first question is, why Innokin out of the, I guess, plethora of different vape companies out there?
You want me to go? Because I know you like to talk a lot during the interview.
Please
so
go ahead.
We were approached by a few different companies when we were in China. I think that Innokin was the best fit for us. I mean, Innokin has always been about safety, a high quality product, but also Innokin's never really lost focus of the smoker, right? So we've seen other companies lose focus of the smoker. And although Innokin they have higher wattage devices, they do have direct lung tanks. I think some really good direct lung tanks. They've never lost focus of smoking conversion and smoking cessation. And I don't know if you know this, but George, one of the owners of Innokin, does actually vape, and that's not something that you see a lot of from the Chinese manufacturers.
I think that if you hear our names in the vaping community for the last 10 years, if you hear about Phil and 𝗦𝗏𝗢, the first thing that comes to your mind is smoker perversions and MTL.
Yeah.
So it was logical for us to partner up with a company that still believes in that. We truly believe that the market between 2016 and 2018 lost its direction. There was just a plethora of sub-ohm tanks and devices, high wattage devices that were coming on the market, but nothing was coming out for the person that's looking to convert. Nothing was coming out for the people that enjoy the mouth-to-lung style of vaping. So we believe that Innokin would give us the best opportunity to be able to offer those products out there where maybe some other companies wouldn't believe in that philosophy. They've always maintained, let's have products to bring new clients to the business, and also to help, you know, millions of smokers out there that have not discovered vaping yet. So it just made a natural fit for me and Phil.
We go to China at least 2 times a year. We work directly with the engineers on the designs and the thoughts and the process. It usually starts off with a design document that we'll send here from the United States. But then there's nothing like actually going there and working with the engineers and having a whiteboard where we can hash out, you know, the ideas, because obviously there's going to be a language barrier there. But having that opportunity to go there and work with them has been really good. It's been fantastic.
Awesome. Now, I guess second question would be, with this being the history of Innokin, what would you say would be the most memorable Innokin product?
Well, I'll start there. I don't know if you know this, but I've known George, one of the owners of Innokin, for a long time. Okay, so long I knew him before he was with Innokin. So George was actually with 𝗏𝗏, and George and I had a relationship with 𝗏𝗏 because at the time I was doing all my e-liquid reviews. Every one of the e-liquids that I would try, every flavor was in a brand new 𝗏𝗏 cardo, right? When George left 𝗏𝗏 and he went and started Innokin, I was one of the first people that he contacted me, and the Leo, I think, was the first product that he contacted me on. But as far as what's the most memorable product from Innokin, I would say that it would have to be the MVP, right? The MVP, there was a time when that was the device to have, right? And hopefully they can recapture that, because they do have another MVP coming out, but MVP 5, right? And then the other most memorable product, because I'll just go right back here and grab it, had to be that, right? That was just one of the most unique electronic cigarette devices out there, you know, and I think it still is. Well, you might not know this, but this is really a laser housing. That's where this originally came from. But you know, when everything was just a tube, Innokin always put out something different and something unique, right? And this was as different and as unique as they come.
But yeah, I mean, obviously, a lot of people don't give credit for the innovation that Innokin has brought. The MVP was the first commercial manufactured and distributed box mod in the market. Everything that was on the market before was made by modders in small batches that you had to get on a list or go, you know somebody to be able to get one. So the MVP came out at a time where box mods were not popular, but it did bring that extra power. You could top it off, you know, with one of the tanks. I think the 𝗀𝗃𝗃 is what they were given at the time, and that helped a lot of people quit smoking because it was a box that was $40. You can go to the vape shop and buy it. It got you out of the ego phase, you know, of having to carry the little round batteries that broke all the time, and then you could charge your phone off of it. You know, at the day of age where we're all on our phones, you know, just being a great product. So very innovative there. So they've had a lot of innovation into those products. But when you hear Innokin, like Phil said, you automatically go to the MVP. And they're working on this new version that's coming out now, the MVP 5. That's got just tons of bells and whistles on it, but always maintains that box, you know, with the output to charge your phone and some other really cool features that we really can't talk about.
And just a massive battery in it.
Massive battery for weeks. Battery for weeks.
I guess that's kind of the perfect segue into the next question. I don't know how much you can say, but any exciting products coming out soon that you can talk about?
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk about some of the Innokin stuff, and you talk some of our products that we can really talk about. Okay. But for us, for Innokin, what we're seeing is, you know, the Proton was a really good device that came out. They're coming out with a Proton Mini, which is really nice with an internal battery. It's designed very nice. It's got some really cool features that me and Phil assisted with in the user interface. I think that it's another segment of this industry that we don't spend a lot of time on, is how is the user going to interface, even with an advanced device, trying to make it easier. And I think that we've been able to accomplish that with the Proton and with the Proton Mini that's coming out. They also have a few more kits kits are very, very underrated. You know, the shop should be carrying more beginner stuff, right? They should have more of a selection. Unfortunately, the vape shops today, you go inside, it's like 97% advanced user and 3% beginner. We want to change that ratio. So they got a couple more kits that are coming out. They're going to be using some of our tanks on them as well too. And of course the MVP5, which has been, you know, a year long, maybe even longer than that project. It goes back to what I told you earlier. Innokin's a little bit slow, but they're taking the time to make sure. The adept box that's coming out from Innokin was an attempt once again to make things easy. How do we get a box mod and give it to somebody that's a starter, kind of going back to the MVP days. So the Adept is a waterproof, shockproof box that has a large internal capacity battery, but it's been designed to work with our tanks.
I don't want to give too much away, but we do have a stick battery that we are putting out. It is going to be a variable wattage device. How we're doing that wattage is 1 part old school, 1 part kind of new school, okay? And I think it's the visual on it that's going to be a little bit different from what we've seen in the past. And then there is, we can talk about the Aries 2. Yeah, the Aries 2 is going to come out. Yeah, we have the renderings on it now. We met with them, we talked to them about what it is we wanted with the Aries 2.
We listened to a lot of the feedback from the consumers as well too, and we try to address some of the issues that some of the people were having with the first version. A lot of it had to do with manufacturing. You know, Innokin really is not in the rebuildable scene, so this was kind of like the first rebuildable that they put out. So we're working really hard on the Aries 2 version to address some of the issues that were in the first one, and then listening to the feedback from the consumers.
And then there is another tank that we probably should not talk about.
Yes,
that tank,
and another tank. All this is coming in the fall. So this summer we got the depth box and the stick battery and a few other kits coming out for the vape shops, and then fall by the Paris show and Vape Expo in October, we should have a few more new products out there.
Currently, Innokin has put out products for every vapor, from the cloud chucking proton kit to the extremely compact and flashy 𝗀𝗄 pod system, which you can watch the review of by clicking the card right up here. It doesn't look like there's any sign of Innokin stopping anytime soon. And as you heard in the interview, they look like they're going to be bringing out some really exciting products very soon. Innokin has definitely made their mark in the industry, and we owe it to them for shaping the industry into what we know it is today. I'm extremely excited to see what future products they have in store. With all that said, what are your thoughts on Innokin? Do you have an Innokin product yourself, or are you thinking of picking one up? Let me know by leaving a comment in the comment section down below. And that pretty much wraps up this episode of our History of series. If there are any other companies you want to see on this show, then shoot it in the comment section below. If you like this video, please be sure to hit that like button down below and hit subscribe to stay up to date with our latest videos. As always, I'm Dave from Dash Vapes, and I'll see you on the next video.
Hey, I just wanted to add this too. My compliments to Dash Vapes. We do the Smoker Show, and on the Smoker Show we have somebody who's named Pam. And Pam she wanted to vape, and she looked at devices and she looked at liquids, and she did research in her area. She's in Canada, and she couldn't find anything other than 0, 3, and 6. Everywhere she looked, she found 0, 3,
she
and 6.
She went to 8
0,
shops. 8 shops before she came to Dash Vapes.
Then she found Dash Vapes, and she came into Dash Vapes, and she had nothing but wonderful things to say about you guys. How much time you took with her, how you patiently answered all of her questions. I think she was in the shop for like an hour.
Hour and 45 minutes.
Hour and 45 minutes she spent with you guys, and she was able to get a device, and she was able to get a nicotine strength, and she was able to get off a cigarette. So my compliments to you guys, and I wish there were more shops out there like you guys.
I just wish there were more Dash Vape stores out there. Believe me, it's really important for people to understand that if there was more shops like Dash Vapes, then we would be in a different position here with smokers right now. And a bad experience to somebody that goes to try to vape might turn them off completely from trying. Thankfully, Pam was persistent and found the right store. But imagine how many customers out there that you possibly might be missing if you're not doing things right. And I think it's hurt overall the industry.